All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time we are going, first of all, good morning. Haven't seen you all in a while. Glad to have you back. I'm sure you're glad to be back. We are going to be taking a witness out of order. That means that, as you know, we are in the midst of the cross-examination of Detective Tom Lang, and we are going to interrupt the cross-examination of Detective Lang to present another witness to you this morning because this person resides, I believe, still resides outside of the state of California. Is that correct? All right, and we'll be returning. All right, you may proceed, Ms. Clark. Thank you.
Good morning. People call Mr. Mark Storfer.
Sir, can you please raise your right hand? You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now given before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat in the witness stand and state and spell your first and last names for the record.
Mark Storfer, M-A-R-K, S-T-O-R, F as in Frank, E-R.
All right, good morning, Mr. Storfer. You can just slide the microphone just slightly to your right. There you go. Perfect.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, Ms. Clark.
Mr. Storfer, directing your attention back to the date of June the 12th, 1994. On that date, sir, where were you living?
At 12100 Dorothy Street.
And where is that, if you can tell us, sir, in relationship to 875 South Bundy?
This house is on the southwest corner of Dorothy and Bundy.
Okay, we have here a chart that is marked as Table 26. If you would step down, sir. First, look at it for a minute so you can orient yourself. And if you can tell us whether there is a box there that indicates where you were living.
No, there's not.
Okay. There is a box, however, marked in purple as Mark Storfer. If that's not correct, can you tell us where your house would have been located?
Sure. Right here.
All right. Down in this lower corner?
That's correct.
And for the record, Your Honor, we will have this corrected to indicate. So were you at the corner of Dorothy and Bundy down at the southwest corner?
That's correct.
Now, from that location, sir, did you have any windows that faced north on Bundy? Of course, sorry.
Yes, I did.
On the night of June the 12th, sir, at approximately 10 p.m., where were you?
In bed with my wife.
And did you have a son at that time?
Yes, I do.
And
I did.
still?
Yes.
Can you tell us, did you have something that you did with your son that evening?
Yes, he had fallen asleep in our bed around that time.
At around 10 o'clock?
That's correct.
Did you take him out of your bed and put him into his bed at some point?
Yes, I did. After he fell asleep, should I proceed?
Go ahead.
I brought him downstairs to his room, which was on the lower level. Our bedroom was on the upper level. And as I was taking him downstairs, I heard a dog barking.
Now, why did that attract your attention?
I was concerned that it would wake up my son. It was that loud and persistent.
Had you heard barking that loud and persistent before in the neighborhood?
No, I had not.
Now, did you see what time it was before you left the bedroom holding your son?
No, I did not.
Was there any point at which you noticed what time it was?
Yes. After I put him in his bed, closed a few lights downstairs, and then went upstairs, I'd remarked to my wife that these dogs were...
Sustain.
You put your son back in his bed, and then you went upstairs,
That's correct.
and you remarked something to your wife about the dogs.
That's correct.
At that point, did you look to see what time it was?
Yes, I did.
And what time was it?
It was 10:28 on the digital display on our TV.
Okay. Now, is that the accurate time, sir?
We typically set our clocks about 5 minutes fast, so I would presume it would have been 5 minutes earlier.
Okay, 10:23.
Correct.
And at that point, it was already, what? Give us an estimate how long after you heard the dog barking.
Probably a good 3 minutes.
So what time was it that you estimate you first heard the dog barking?
About 10:20 p.m.
Now, when you got into bed with your wife, it was about, I'm sorry, you got back into the room at 10:23?
10:28 is when I looked at the TV, which was a couple of minutes after I'd gotten into the room.
Right, okay. And so that, given that you set your clocks faster, as you had indicated, 5 minutes, it was about 10:23?
That's correct.
What did you do at that point?
I looked out the window of our bedroom that faces north towards Bundy to see if I could see where that dog was or what was going on. It was pretty dark, and I couldn't see anything unusual, and I couldn't locate the dog. I also looked out the west-facing window of our bedroom to see if the dog was further over to the west. We faced the alley on the west side, and I could not see anything at that time either.
Okay. So when you say you looked west, were you looking down Dorothy?
That's correct.
Okay. And when you looked north up Bundy.
Up Bundy and the front of Dorothy as well.
Were you able to see anyone walking down the street at that time?
No, I did not.
And for how long did you look out the window?
Just very briefly initially, and then we went to bed, and I had slept very lightly because the dog had continued to bark. I'd doze off, wake up, doze off, wake up, and I kept looking out the window periodically.
Throughout the night?
About 12:15, when I looked out the window.
Sustained.
At some point, well, let me ask you this. Up until about 12:15, when you looked out your window, did you look north on Bundy at each occasion?
Yes.
And from the first time you looked north on Bundy at about 10:23 till the last time you looked north on Bundy at 12:15, did you see anyone walking down the street southbound or northbound on Bundy?
No, I did not.
At 12:15, when you looked out your window, what did you see?
I saw a number of police cars with their lights on, and yellow police tape blocking off both Dorothy and Bundy on two corners.
During the time that you kept looking out the window up until 12:15, were you still able to hear the dog barking?
Yes, I was.
Was there something unusual about the manner in which it was barking that drew your attention?
It was very persistent. The dog continued to bark and stopped just long enough to take a breath and bark some more. He whined or yelped periodically.
Now, had you ever heard barking like that coming from that area?
No, I had not.
And when I say that area, what area did it seem to be coming from?
From the front of the house, which is north-facing.
Would that be from the location, general vicinity of 875 South Bundy?
Sustained.
North of your location would be up Bundy, correct?
That's correct.
And is 875 South Bundy north of your location?
That's correct.
And did the barking appear to come from that area?
Sustained.
And where did the barking seem to be coming from in relationship to 875 South Bundy?
From that direction.
And at 12:15, when you looked outside, you saw the police. Were you able to see any dogs?
Yes, I did. I saw a white, medium-sized, long hair type of dog tied to a street sign on the northeast corner
Of
Bundy and Dorothy.
Sir, if you could step down and look at the animal shown in People's 26, can you tell us? There's a photograph at the bottom there. Can you tell us if you recognize that dog?
It looks very similar to the one that I saw tied up.
At the northeast corner of South Dorothy and Bundy?
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Storker.
Good morning.
As I understand your testimony, you're telling us that there were a number of police cars out there by 12:15 in the early morning hours of June 13th, 1994?
More than one, yes.
And by a number, what number? Give us the total number.
I remember seeing one on Bundy, just beyond the yellow tape. I saw one on Dorothy, parked just opposite our house, and I believe I saw one in the alley facing our house.
So you saw at least 3 police cars there by 12:15, is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, yes.
And as I understand your testimony, the first time you looked at a clock in reference to this dog barking, the clock on your TV said 10:28 p.m. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, it is.
And with regard to this particular clock, when did you last set that clock, if ever?
Probably not in a long while.
So how long did you have that TV?
6, 8 years.
And would you say you had not set it during that period of time?
Oh, no, I had said it in that period of time.
You just have no idea when it was before June 12th, 1994 that you last set it?
Well, I'd said it one time when we moved to that location in April, because the power came out, so I had to reset it in April.
April of what year?
Same year, 1994.
April of 94? Had you set it after that?
Not to my recollection.
Do you know if your wife had set it at all after that?
Not to my knowledge.
All right. You've discussed that with her at all?
No, I have not.
All right. You've not talked to her about that. What you can tell us is the last time you said it was in April of 1994. Is that correct?
That's the last time I remember setting it,
All right,
correct?
that you can tell us about.
Yes.
All right. And at that time, when you saw it this evening, it said 10:28 p.m. or thereabouts, right?
That's correct.
All right. Now, from your location, and so that it's clear from the record, this diagram that was placed on the board here, which we refer to as People's number 26 for identification. The house is labeled Mark Storfer is in the wrong location on this diagram. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're more over on this corner. You're on the southwest corner.
That's correct.
Dorothy and Bundy. And from your window, you have a window that faces, and you can look down the alley. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And at some point that evening, you look down this alley, the alley that runs parallel to Bundy. It intersects here with Dorothy. Is that correct?
That's correct. I can only see to the north on the alley.
You can see north, looking up the alley north.
Right.
Is that right? And about what time was it that you first looked up that alley, sir?
Approximately 10:28.
All right, and this is about the time that you first became aware of the time that appeared on your television. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And when you look up that alley, did you see any vehicles or any cars?
No, I did not.
You see any persons at all up there? Any people walking?
No, I did not.
What did you see, if anything?
I didn't see anything.
You just looked up the alley and saw basically nothing.
Empty alley,
Okay.
asphalt.
All right. Didn't see any cars, didn't see any people. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And this was about 10:28, according to your clock, 10:28
According to the
p.m.?
clock, that's
All right.
correct.
Now, from another window of your residence, were you able to see north on Bundy at all?
There are other windows I could see north on Bundy, but I did not look out those windows.
You didn't look out those windows, right?
That's correct.
And so, as I understand your testimony that evening, you never saw any people walking down Bundy in a southerly direction toward Dorothy from north to south. You never saw that?
Not between 10:28 and 12:15, correct.
All right, during the times that you looked. Now, between 10:28 and 12:15, how many times did you look out the window?
I think maybe a couple of times.
And that means 2?
Yes.
All right. And during one of those times, you looked up the alley. Is that right?
That's
Answer
correct.
out loud so she can take it down. So one of the times you looked up the alley, north up the alley, right?
That's correct.
And you saw nothing. During one of those times, the other time, did you look up the alley or did you look up Bundy or both?
I don't think I looked up the alley. It was probably on Dorothy and maybe the beginning part of Bundy.
Okay. And so did you ever see a lady and a man walking down Bundy on the west side of Bundy anytime around 10:28 or thereafter?
No, I did not.
Did you ever hear any sounds coming from north of Bundy? Did you ever hear any screams or anything of that nature?
Just the dog bark.
No. Did you ever hear any screams?
No, I did not.
Did you ever hear anybody yell, hey, 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 at all that night?
No, I did not.
So you never heard any sounds at all that night between 10:28 and 12:15?
Not besides the dog barking.
Okay, yeah. I'm talking about human beings now, not
No
dogs,
human
okay?
being sounds.
All right, okay. And you never saw any human beings, right?
That's correct.
Okay. But you heard this dog barking. Is that
Yes.
right? And it's your testimony that at 12:15, when you looked outside, the dog was tied to a post or something outside?
That's correct.
And you're sure about that, right?
Yep.
Okay. Where was, step down for us and show us where this dog was tied up at 12:15 a.m. on June 13th.
Right here on the northeast corner.
Can we get that mark somewhere, like the mark where he has that in some fashion?
Speaks for itself, Your Honor. Northeast corner of Bundy and
I'd
North.
like to have a mark put there. Yes.
Well, it's the prosecution's exhibit at this point. Do you have something similar that you can use?
No, Your Honor, but it's going to be an exhibit for the court, for the jury ultimately. I just want to be able to observe it later on as to where it says that, if at all possible.
Well, he's just pointed to it in front of the jury, so I assume that they can recall that.
All right, very well. Okay. So the northeast corner of Dorothy and Bundy on People's 26 for identification is where you saw this dog tied, is that right?
That's correct.
You could see that from your window?
Yes, I could.
And did you look out the window and see the dog at 12:15 and see him tied there?
That's correct.
And at that time, was the dog barking at that point?
Yes, he was.
Did you
Or
ever?
it.
I'm
It
sorry.
was.
All right, it was, okay. Did you ever hear any more than one dog barking that night?
No, I did not.
And was that the first time that you saw a dog that night at about 12:15?
Yes, it was.
And that was right about the same time that you had seen these three police cars that you described for us, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you at that point, around 12:15, talk to any police officers at that point?
Not at that time, no.
You did at some later time talk to some police officers?
That's correct.
All right. And did you see them, did they write a report out at all when they talked to you at that evening? I'm asking.
Oh, well,
Did the police write a report out?
The officer had a little blue menu card, and I saw him jot a few things down on there.
Did he? Your Honor, may we approach? Sure. With regard to that.
all right, thank you, counsel.
Do you know, did you ever find out the name of the officer who talked to you?
No, I do not know his name.
At what time did this officer speak with you, sir?
About 2:20 a.m.,
2:20?
approximately.
Was the officer in plain clothes or in a uniform?
Uniform.
And did you ever ascertain the name of that police officer?
No, I did not.
Was it a, can you describe the officer for us?
Hardly.
Male? Female?
Male.
Okay.
Male, medium height, a little bit greater than medium build.
All right. Caucasian?
Caucasian, I
African-American?
believe.
All right. And how long did you talk to him at that time?
Maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
And you saw him write something down on a card or on some kind of a pad or something, he said?
Saw him jot down some note, yes.
And at that time, you spoke to him about what you had heard that particular night, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, prior to seeing this police officer, had you dozed off that in the early morning hours that day?
Yes.
And then you'd wake back up, and then you'd awaken, and you'd hear the dog barking, or is that correct?
That's correct. Until I heard the doorbell ring.
And then you were awakened, and you came
Right.
downstairs, is that
Yes.
correct? All right. Was your son able to remain asleep through this all?
Yes, he was.
Now, with regard to this matter, you gave a statement to the district attorney's office on January 1st, 1995, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
In this building,
No, in my home.
at your home? And at that time, you indicated that you'd brought your son down to bed somewhere between 10:20 and 10:30 that night, is that correct?
Correct?
And at that time, you indicated that you looked out the window and you couldn't see where this barking was coming from, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so would I be correct in assuming that you never saw a dog until you said you saw this dog tied up near Dorothy and Bundy there on the corner at about 12:15? Is that correct?
That's correct.
You never told the investigator about seeing a clock on your television that said 10:28 p.m., did you? Or a.m. Or p.m., right?
I don't remember.
Never mentioned to him, did you?
I don't remember.
Would it be helpful to you to review your statement?
Sure.
All right. May I approach you?
Yes.
Before you, Counsel, statement taken of Mark Storfer on January 1st, 1995. Investigator by the name of Michael Stevens. It's fairly short. It's about 4 pages. Why don't you read that to yourself quickly if you can?
It mentions here about looking at a clock.
All right,
So
did
that
you
would
tell
be
him-
the clock.
All right. The question is, did you tell him at that time that you looked at the clock and it said 10:28 p.m.? Did it say that?
Does not say that, no.
All right. Did it say anything at all on there about the clock may have been 5 minutes fast?
No.
Anything about that? All right. So you didn't tell him that at that time, did you?
Not at that time, no.
This interview was also tape recorded, was it not?
That's correct.
All right. Now, you woke up about 1:30 that evening, that 1:30 a.m. that morning, isn't that correct?
About 2:20, 2:15, 2:20 when the doorbell rang.
All right, you hadn't awakened at 1:30?
Not to my recollection, no.
All right, let me see if this refreshes your recollection at all. Page 2 of the statement. Bottom line 728. Just read this part yourself. It's a nice part. You read that to yourself?
Yes, I have.
Does that refresh your recollection at all with regard to what you said to Investigator Stevens?
No, but I must have said it.
All right. Did you tell him that I think I woke up at 1:30 and of course it was still barking? Did you say that to him?
That's what the transcript says.
Right. Do you
I
recall saying-
don't recall.
Okay. Which would your memory have been better on January 1st than it is now? Did you think?
I don't know.
All right. If you said that on a tape, would you were trying to tell the truth, were you not?
Sure.
So you're trying to be as accurate as you could?
Yep.
At some point, did you notice any yellow tape lines around the perimeter there at the area of Dorothy and Bundy, sir?
Yes.
And when did you notice that?
Approximately 12:15.
All right, and at 12:15 you noticed that?
Yes.
And you know that at 12:15, when you noticed that, that's when you saw those 3 police cars, right?
That's correct.
And this yellow tape was kind of a perimeter around the area there at Bundy, is that correct?
It was on 2 corners.
Okay, describe for the jury at 12:15 where this yellow tape was.
Sure. It crossed the north side of Bundy from east to west,
Okay.
and the west side of Dorothy from north to south.
All right. And it just looked as though that yellow tape would keep people from coming in
Yes.
the area? Seemed like a perimeter to you.
Yes.
All right. And it was at 12:15 that you saw this, right?
That's correct.
And this was at the same time that you saw the dog tied up on the corner also, right?
Yes.
And up to the time that you talked to the police after 2 o'clock in the morning, would I be correct in assuming that you still had not seen any vehicles out there, any other vehicles, either in the alley or up on Bundy?
Besides the police cars, that's correct.
Right. And you had not seen any other individuals, either in the alley or up on Bundy?
That's correct.
And you're sure about the times you told us about today, right?
Yes.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Stark.
Ms. Clark?
Thank you, Ron. Showing you the statement that Mr. Cochran showed you, lines 19 and 20 on page 2. Did you indicate there that you looked at the clock and that's how you remember it was between 10:20 and 10:30?
That's correct.
And you gave that estimate? When you gave that estimate, were you aware of your habit that you've earlier testified to of setting your clocks 5 minutes ahead?
Yes, I was.
So at this time, is it your recollection that you heard the dog begin to bark at 10:20?
That's correct.
Well, the answer will stand.
The first time,
Same testimony that you had on direct. Proceed.
the first time you looked out your window, sir, did you look at the alley? When I say the alley, what alley are you talking about?
The alley to the west of my house and to the west of Bundy, running parallel with Bundy.
Okay, would that be the alley that runs behind the area of 875 South Bundy?
That's correct.
Okay, and you looked out your window, the first time you looked out your window, was that when you first got back to your bedroom from having put your son to bed?
Yes.
Okay, and what time was it you thought that was?
My clock said 10:28, so it would have been about 10:23.
10:23. And where did you look first?
I looked on Dorothy right in front of the house first.
P38.
All right. You looking at the monitor, sir?
Yes, I am.
Do you recognize that area?
Yes, that's the alley.
Okay. Have I ever shown you any pictures before?
No, you have not.
Okay. So this is the first time you've ever seen this?
Yes, it is.
Okay, when you say it's the alley, do you mean the alley that you just described running behind 875 South Bundy?
That's correct.
And how far up the alley were you able to see from your house?
Maybe 50 feet.
Were you able to see as far as the man standing? Can you see the man standing there to the right of the police car?
Yes, I can.
Were you able to see that far up the alley?
I don't believe so.
How far up the alley could you see if you can locate a point in this photograph?
Probably behind those cars parked on the right side perpendicular to the alley.
Okay. There's a car that you see. Excuse me, may I complete my questioning of the witness?
Yes, please.
You see a car that's parked facing in towards the building where there's lights in the balcony?
Yes, I do.
Is that the one you're referring to as far up as you can see?
Not quite that far.
Just before that?
That's correct.
Does the telestrator work for this? All right, I'm going to ask you to guide the arrow.
Okay.
Tell the arrow where to go.
Down to the right, stop a little bit up, and a bit left, behind the cars, somewhere about there.
Could you please put... There we go. Thank you.
And I could see across the alley from that point.
Could this be marked as 38A, Your Honor?
38D.
D? D.
38D, as in David, we're going to print this.
D as in David.
Print this, all right.
Okay, so the first time you looked out your window, the first place you looked was...
On Dorothy in front of the house.
And that was at 10:23, you said?
That's correct.
And did you also at that time look down the alley?
Yes, I did.
People's Exhibit number 50.
Oh, it's dark on the screen, isn't it? Can you lighten that? Is there anyone?
Do you recognize location shown on that photograph, sir?
It appears to be Bundy Street.
And can you tell which direction you're looking on Bundy in that photograph?
I believe facing north.
Does this photograph give you as good a view north on Bundy as you had from your apartment or from your residence window on the night of June the 12th?
No, it does not.
Are you able to see farther up north on Bundy from your window?
That's correct.
But that is the location in which you were looking.
That's correct.
And when you looked out your window for the first time at 10:23, you looked first north on Bundy? That was the first place you looked?
I actually looked on Dorothy first, and then north on Bundy, then the alley.
So when you looked on Dorothy, in which direction on Dorothy did you look?
Both directions, east and west in front of the house.
Did you see anyone on the street on either east or west Dorothy?
No, I did not.
And then you looked where?
North on Bundy.
Did you see anyone walking either up or down the street at that time?
No, I
north
did
on
not.
Bundy? And did you see anyone in the alley?
No, I did not.
Do you recall, and then did you say you looked out the window again at some later point?
Yes, I did.
When was that?
Maybe around 11.
And when you looked out the window at 11, where did you look?
On Dorothy and on Bundy.
Did you look east and west on Dorothy?
Yes, I did.
Did you see anyone?
No, I did not.
When you looked on Bundy, did you look north again?
Yes, I did.
Did you see anyone?
No, I did not.
And you also did not see a dog.
No, I did not.
Could you still hear the barking?
Yes, I could.
Did you look up the alley at that time?
I don't recollect looking up the alley at that time.
And then did you get back in bed?
Yes, I did.
Did you get up again?
Yes,
And what time was it that you got up again?
maybe around 11:30-ish.
Did you look out the window again?
Yes, I did.
Where did you look that point?
On Dorothy,
East and west?
east and west.
Did you see anyone?
No, I did not.
Did you look up north on Bundy again?
I don't recollect. Probably not.
Were you still able to hear barking?
Yes, I was.
And then what did you do?
Went back to bed.
Did you get up again?
Yes, I did.
What time?
About 12:15.
And is that when you saw police cars?
Yes, it is.
And is that when you saw the dog?
That's correct.
When you looked, so on each occasion when you looked out your window, is it your testimony that you saw no one walking north or south on Bundy or on Dorothy or in the alley behind 875 South Bundy?
That's correct.
And Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to correct the exhibit marked as People's 26 based on this witness's testimony.
Certainly, why don't we have Mr. Storfer place the markers?
If we could let him point it out to Mr. Fairtlow, because these are sticky. So the record, the witness is pointing again to the southwest corner, and Mr. Fairtlow has placed the icon in that location. Mr. Storfer, is your residence on the night of June the 12th now correctly indicated on the diagram marked People's 26?
Yes, it is.
And it does, and the window you described does face north, as is indicated on that diagram?
That's correct.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Mr. Cochran, any recross?
Yes, a few questions, Your Honor. You had described in looking up, may we have 38D back up here?
Mr. Cochran.
Thank you, Rick County. And Mr. Storfer, you've shared with us and helped us by placing an arrow about how far you could see up that alleyway. And my question is, on how many occasions, if any, after the first time you looked up the alley that night, at about after 10, your clock said 10:28 or thereabouts, did you look again?
testimony.
Clock said 10:28, mistaken testimony.
Witness testified the time was 10:20,
Yeah.
10:23.
Clock said
Clock
or
said
thereabouts.
10:28.
Overruled.
Thank you. With regard to that, how many times after, your clock said 10:28, did you look up that alley as depicted there on People's 38D?
None until about, no, none beyond that time.
All right, so you understand the question? I'm asking how many times did you look up the alley after you looked this first time that evening? If you
None.
know? Okay, so you only looked one time?
That's correct.
All right. How many times altogether that evening did you look up Bundy, north on Bundy?
3 or 4, including the early morning.
All right. And how many times did you look east and west on Dorothy?
Probably about 4 times.
And you described for us that, again, that you saw the dog was tied at the post at about 12:15. Call that?
That's correct.
And did you look at your clock again at that point?
Yes,
So actually that would be about 12:10 then, wouldn't it? If your clock was 5 minutes fast.
approximately, yes.
So then these police cars that you saw, these 3 police cars that you saw out there, they would also be about 12:10, is that right?
Approximately.
Now, with regard to this clock, you had last set that clock in April of 1994, is that correct?
Overruled.
You last set that clock in April of 1994, is that correct?
It's the last time I remember setting it.
Right. And you don't know whether your wife had reset it or you'd had any kind of power outages in that area between April and June 12th, 1994 to check the accuracy of that clock, do you?
No, I do not.
All right. So you're giving us just your best estimate, is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
And with regard to this yellow tape that you saw up, again at about 12:15, if your clock was fast, it would be 12:10. If it was slow, it'll be even later. Is that right?
Objection, that calls for speculation.
Overruled.
That would be correct.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Storfer. Thank you.
Mr. Storfer, when you saw this dog tied up across the street to the street sign, did it continue to bark?
Yes, it did.
Anything else?
Mr. Storfer, the first time you looked at, you indicated the first time you looked at the clock. When, if ever, did you look at the clock again?
I must have looked each time that I got up to look out the window.
Do you have a specific memory of doing that?
No, I don't.
Do you have a specific memory of looking at the clock the first time that you heard, when you first came upstairs to your bedroom?
Very much so, yes.
Okay. The times after that, when you got up to look out the window, do you have any specific memory of looking at your clock?
Not specifically, no.
So with respect to the times that you're giving us after the first time you looked out the window, when you first got back to your bedroom, are those times approximate?
Yes, they are.
Overruled.
I have nothing further.
But again, Mr. Storfer, you're trying to be as accurate as you can in giving us these times. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you believe that you did look at the clock at other times that evening when you got up. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
That's right. Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Storfer, thank you very much for coming in. You're now excused.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Clark, are we ready to resume with Detective Lang? All right. All right, good morning again, Detective.
Morning, Your Honor.
All right, record should reflect that Detective Tom Lang has resumed the witness stand. The detective has been reminded he is still under oath. And Mr. Cochran, you may resume your cross-examination.
Thank you for catching. Good morning, Detective Lane.
Morning.
You haven't retired yet, have you?
Not yet.
Still there? Okay, great. Good to have you back. You've had occasion, have you not, Detective Lang, to discuss your testimony with the district attorneys. Isn't that correct, Mr. Darden and Ms. Clark?
Yes.
And during the breaks, you have occasion to talk about your testimony, isn't that correct?
On occasion, yes.
And sometime during the lunch hour, you've had occasion to go up and discuss your testimony, is that correct?
Not recently, but I have.
Well, when you last testified,
Yes.
you haven't been here recently, I trust, huh? Have you?
No.
Now, in that connection, did Mr. Darden tell you that you ought to be more aggressive in your answers to my questions because I was making points on cross-examination? He tell you that?
For me to be more aggressive?
Yes, in your answers to my questions and to volunteer things because I was making points on cross-examination.
No, I don't believe he told me to be more aggressive.
You don't believe he told you that?
No.
Did you have occasion, I'd like to show you an article. Your Honor, I'd like to approach, first show the court something, if I might.
Yes, with third order, please. Mr. Cochran.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Lang, did you have occasion to read any newspaper articles wherein Mr. Darden was quoted? Okay.
Newspaper articles bearing on his testimony here in court.
You stated, Your Honor. Do you have occasion to read any newspaper articles bearing upon your testimony and whether or not you should be more aggressive in your answers?
No.
Did you have any conversation at all with Mr. Darden about the way you were answering questions last week? That is the week of February the 20th.
We discussed various parts of the testimony.
And what did he tell you about the way you were answering the questions?
I don't recall anything specific one way or the other as far as how I was answering the questions.
Well, give us your best recollection about what he said. Did he criticize you during the discussions with him?
No, I don't believe I was criticized.
You didn't take it as criticism?
No.
I'm asking, did he take it as criticism?
Overruled.
What did he say to you?
Again, I have no specifics as far as exactly what was said, but I certainly didn't take it as criticism.
All right. And with regard to Ms. Clark, what did she say to you about your testimony, if anything?
Again, I don't recall any specifics. I don't recall any criticism, however.
When was the last time that you spoke with these two lawyers, either of these two lawyers, about your testimony here today?
At least a week ago, perhaps longer.
That would have been after you concluded your testimony the last time you were here?
I believe that was on a Thursday. I don't recall if it was after or prior.
All right. You don't recall if you talked to him either after or before that?
Well, I'm trying to think back. I believe I testified a week ago Thursday the last time. And I don't recall if there's any discussion on my testimony that Friday or it was before. I just don't recall.
All right. And what was said at that time that you recall?
I don't recall exactly what was said. We were discussing my testimony and what I'd be testifying to.
All right. Do you recall a conversation that you and I had wherein you indicated that you very often don't listen to lawyers anyway?
No, I don't.
You don't remember that conversation?
No.
You don't remember? Does that sound like something you might say?
That I don't listen to lawyers
Listen to
often?
lawyers that don't listen to what lawyers say very often anyway.
I think I'd be very careful where I said that.
You don't recall ever saying that?
No, I don't.
Yeah, maybe approach again just for a moment. Sure. Counsel.
Thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. Detective Lang, do you recall that when you were testifying before, I asked you whether or not you were aware of a controversy between the Los Angeles Police Department and the L.A. County Coroner's Office regarding the LAPD's failure to promptly report the death of individuals at crime scenes? Remember those questions?
A controversy?
Yes.
I don't recall a controversy.
All right. Now, I'm asking you, do you remember me asking you those series of questions?
I recall something like that, yes.
All right. And you indicated to us that you didn't recall any particular controversy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you ever at any time spoken with a Mr. Juan J. Jimenez, Assistant Chief of the Los Angeles County Coroner's Operations Bureau?
I know who Mr. Jimenez is. I've never had any conversations with him.
You never talked to him at all?
In passing, not about any specific case.
All right. Have you talked to him, and are you aware of whether or not Mr. Jimenez had any kind of oversight responsibility on the Simpson case?
No, I'm not.
Have you ever talked to him about the question of time of death as it relates to the Simpson case?
I don't recall talking to Mr. Jimenez. I recall talking to Dr. Lashmanan and Dr. Golden regarding that.
And was Jimenez present at that time, if you recall?
No.
All right, so that you talked to him, but perhaps not about this case?
I may have. I've spoken with dozens and dozens of people regarding this case, and many at the coroner's office. I just don't have an independent recollection of speaking with Mr. Jimenez about the case.
All right. At any time when you've talked to Mr. Jimenez in the past, he has ever voiced any complaint from the coroner's department about the LAPD's failure to report or to call the coroner's office promptly to report deaths of individuals?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
I don't recall any complaints from Mr. Jimenez.
You do not
No.
recall any complaints from Dr. Lakshmanan, the coroner of Los Angeles County?
No, I wouldn't call it complaints.
Well, what would you call it? What would he say?
Hearsay. Sustained.
Well, how would you characterize what Dr. Lakshmanan said to you?
Sustained.
Has Dr. Lakshmanan ever complained to you about the LAPD's failure to notify them promptly?
No.
And can you tell us when was the last time you spoke with Mr. Juan J. Jimenez, approximately?
It hasn't been recent, but I couldn't tell you a date.
Okay. Now, Detective Lang, when last we were here, we talked about the notebooks that you had, and you were kind enough to go and look through these notebooks that you had. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And on one of the videos, you're seen writing on a kind of a clipboard. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And what were you doing when you were writing on that clipboard at the Bundy scene there?
I was writing crime scene notes.
And were those notes? Did those notes become originals in those books that you had when you were here last week?
Yes.
In other words, you wrote something down and you put those directly in the into the homicide book?
That's correct.
Do you have an original copy of the notes that you were writing on the morning?
An original copy?
Strike that. Do you have an original of the notes? Thank you, Your Honor. The original of the notes that you were writing on the morning of June 13th, 1994, the ones we see you writing in the video?
Yes, I do.
And can we see those?
Certainly.
May I approach you?
All right, the records reflect that Detective Tom Lang is still on the witness stand. Good morning again, Detective. You're reminded you're still
Morning.
under oath. Mr. Cochran, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Detective Lang. Just when we took the break, we were looking, we had an occasion during the break to look at your notes and with regard to the Bundy crime scene. Is that correct?
Yes.
And with regard to the notes, what's contained in the book before you are your original notes that were written at or about the time of your observations at the scene. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you shared those with me, and by and large I have copies of those. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, for instance, I have a question for you. With regard to the question of the liver temperature on Nicole Brown Simpson, from a chronological standpoint, I believe you told us that her liver temperature was taken after Mr. Goldman's temperature. Is that correct?
That's my recollection.
Because his was taken at the scene, is your recollection, and then hers was taken later in the coroner's van. Is that correct?
Yes.
So now, chronologically, if you're looking at your notes at the bottom of 0548, you have her liver temperature. Would that have been put in there after you discover that information? Look at the bottom of 0548.
That would have been put in there at the time that I received the information, yes.
All right. So that the fact it may come before Goldman, you kept it in order under Nicole Brown Simpson. Is that correct?
The fact that it came before Goldman, I believe it was subsequent to Goldman.
Well, the fact that in your notes it appears at a time before we talk about Mr. Goldman is of no particular consequence. Is that correct?
Other than that's the time that the temperature was taken.
And is it your recollection that with regard to the liver temperatures of both individuals, that they both had the same liver temperature?
Yes.
And it's your recollection again that you saw the liver temperature of Goldman being taken there at the scene, right?
I believe I did, yes.
And from remembering that video, both bodies were basically moved to about the same place before they were placed on the coroner's gurney. Is that correct?
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
All right. You remember seeing the video, do you not, with regard to the removal of the body of Miss Nicole Brown Simpson?
Yes.
And thereafter, Mr. Goldman's body was brought over to that same general area on the walkway before it was placed on the gurney. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And were both bodies removed by this coroner's investigator by the name of Jacopo?
With the assistance of Ratcliffe, yes.
All right. What is, if you know, what is the difference in their two particular functions with the coroner's office? The lady, Miss Ratcliffe, and the gentleman who's wearing the blue jumpsuit.
Miss Ratcliffe is a coroner's investigator, and the other gentleman is a coroner's driver and assistant.
And have you worked with those two individuals before on other cases?
I don't recall if I have or not.
All right. Now, last week I had asked you some questions about the envelope that contains the one lens therein. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Now, the first time that you had occasion to look inside that,
Overruled.
When was,
You just said yes. Let me see counsel at sidebar. Without the report. Mr. Carpenter, you're going to withdraw the last question?
yeah, I
and
will,
answer?
Your Honor, just for clarity and to move this matter on.
All right, thank you. Jury shall disregard the last question and answer.
With regard to the envelope that was found at the scene that contained the eyeglasses, you recall some questions about that last week?
Yes.
Can you tell us what date it was that you had occasion, if any, to look inside that envelope?
I peered inside an opening in the envelope on the morning of the 13th.
All right, and where were you when you peered inside an opening in the envelope at that time?
Well, basically standing over it.
And that was in the early morning hours during the course of your Bundy crime scene investigation?
Yes.
And when you said there was an opening, did you make an opening to it, or was there already an opening in the envelope at that point?
No, there was a small opening that I could peer into.
Was the envelope, how was it laying? Was there some writing on that envelope?
There was writing on the underside, the bottom side.
All right, so that the part with the writing was against the ground, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and your observations were made as you stood above the envelope and did you peer inside of it?
Yes.
And when you looked inside, what did you see, Detective Lang, if anything?
What appeared to be a pair of eyeglasses.
And did you notice at that time how many lenses did these eyeglasses have?
No, I wouldn't have been able to see that.
All right. So at this point, you can't tell us whether it was one lens or two lenses, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever, in the course of your investigation, go back and ascertain when the glasses were found over at Mezzaluna, how many lenses were there?
I don't believe so.
So did you ever talk to the owner of the glasses with regard to the fact of, at some point, I presume they had two lenses in those glasses, is that correct?
Excuse me, counsel. Won't you approach without the reporter, please? All right, thank you, counsel. Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you. Then I understand that the envelope containing the glasses are not here today, so in that connection, I'm probably going to have to mark as a photograph of what's to be the envelope. I'll have to show Detective Lang that.
All right. Defense next in order is 1047.
1047.
All right, with the report, please. All right, Mr. Cochran, you're going to withdraw 1047.
Yes, sure, and I have another photograph. I think it's People's 104, I guess, for identification. They almost. Detective Lang, with regard to...
I think Mr. Fairlow needs the barcode back. Can we bring that up?
Detective Lang, have you seen that, what's depicted there of before, sir?
Yes.
And was the envelope in that approximate condition when you saw it at the scene before you peered inside of it?
I believe so.
If you can tell us, and you may have to step down, what I wanted to find out was, how did you peer inside the envelope? We don't have the envelope here this morning, which is the problem. So if you can help us with that and paint a word picture for the jury as to how you peered inside the envelope, sir.
Well, I peered inside it by standing over it and bending over. If you notice in the upper left quadrant, there is the opening that I earlier alluded to, and that's what I looked into.
Can you say the upper left quadrant?
Yes.
Can you step down and point that out so everybody's clear? Do you need a pointer?
It's right up in this area right here.
All right. Your Honor, he's indicating in the upper left quadrant of the envelope near the top.
Yes.
All right. And so you looked inside from that vantage point, is that correct, sir?
Yes.
And what did you see? Now, you saw these glasses, then you saw what else?
It appeared to me to be a pair of glasses. I didn't see a whole lot more. You can't see a whole lot through that little crack.
All right. And that's as much as you saw at that time, is that correct?
Yes.
And in your notes, did you ever ascertain, you may resume your seat, sir. Did you ever ascertain whether or not there was more than one lens inside that envelope?
I did not.
And so you don't know at this point, is that correct?
I don't know.
Were you ever told, after you were on the witness stand last week, that there's only one lens found in that envelope at some later time? Were you ever told that?
I believe you mentioned that.
All right. And did anybody else ever tell you that other than myself?
No.
Questions? Now, did you note this in your notes at all as to anything about lenses? The notes we've been talking about?
No.
So you don't indicate in your notes whether or not there were one lens or two lenses?
Again, I don't recall seeing one or two lenses.
You just saw these glasses, is that right?
There appeared to be a pair of glasses in the envelope, yes.
Do you know whether or not there was ever a picture taken of these glasses at the time the envelope was booked?
At the time it was booked?
Yes.
I don't believe there would have been, no.
It would have been booked in that same condition it now appears on the Olmo?
It should have been, yes.
Now, with regard to, I asked you some questions before about the moving evidence. In any of your notes or any of your reports, did you ever at any time note that any of the evidence had actually been moved?
Objection asked and answered.
Well, it's preliminary.
No.
And the evidence, as I understand it, that we have of the evidence being moved are the photos themselves. Is that correct?
Photographs, that's correct.
Did you find some kind of a Bonita, Ecuador label somewhere out at that scene that day?
Yes.
And what is a Bonita, Ecuador label?
It appeared to me to be a small sticker label that perhaps would go on a piece of fruit.
And where did you find this particular label, sir?
It was found near the east pole of the stationary gate east of the sidewalk, I believe 2 or 3 inches from that location.
Where is that label now?
I believe it was booked into evidence.
All right, have you seen it recently?
No.
And when you say it was found near the east pole, where was it, on the ground? Where was it?
It was on the ground, yes.
And it was booked into evidence, is that correct?
Yes.
And with regard to that, when's the last time you saw that label?
The last,
Like a banana? Some kind of fruit?
I suppose it's possible.
You don't know where that label is today, do you?
Where it is?
Yes, where it is present.
It's at Scientific Investigation Division.
So still be at LAPD?
Yes.
So if we wanted to get it brought over, you could do that for us?
I could probably see that it was done, yes.
Over the lunch hour?
Certainly.
Do you recall any photographs being taken of that label?
The label appears in one photograph, but not a close-up shot. It's an overall shot.
All right. Now, with regard to Mr. Goldman, did you, on the date of June 13th or any time around that time, conduct any investigation by going personally to Mr. Goldman's apartment to try and trace his activities on the evening hours of June 12th, 1994?
I did not. I had 2 other detectives do that.
And who were they?
Detectives Tippin and Carr.
And what did you have them do, if you recall?
They went to Mr. Goldman's residence.
But let me kind of stop you there for a minute. When did they first go to Mr. Goldman's residence?
When?
Yes, when, sir?
I don't recall. It was after the 13th. I don't specifically recall the date. They have a log.
All right, they have a log.
Yes.
Does your log indicate at all when they went?
I don't believe it'd be in my log. It should be in their log.
Okay, and that would be in Tippin and whom else?
Carr.
And Carr. Now, I interrupted you. What did they do, as best you can recall, with regard to Mr. Goldman?
Conducted an investigation at Mr. Goldman's apartment.
And did they go through some kind of a day book or a notebook of his and look through certain papers? Is that correct?
I believe they did.
And we've been provided with copies of that. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Now, in that connection, as the investigating officer in this case, would it be relevant to you to know, for instance, what time Mr. Goldman had his last meal that evening?
It certainly could be, yes.
And did you ascertain where and when he had his last meal and what time?
I did not.
You did not do that?
No.
With regard to Mr. Goldman's stomach contents, they were not thrown away, as with Miss Nicole Brown Simpson. Isn't that correct?
That's my understanding.
And so the stomach contents were available. And have you, in the course of your investigation, had occasion to examine the stomach contents or discuss that with the coroner to assist you in extrapolating backwards as to when Mr. Goldman might have had his last meal prior to the time of his death?
That examination,
Objection, Your Honor, that's not beyond scope.
Overruled.
that examination would be conducted by the coroner's office.
All right, but you, as you were present during the autopsy, were you not?
That's correct.
And you're the investigating officer, one of them. Is that right?
That's correct.
Time of death is critical in this case, is it not?
Yes.
And did you talk to the coroner's office about the stomach contents of Mr. Goldman, to try and determine when he had his last meal and at what time?
We discussed time of death in regards to stomach contents and the fact that digestion could be retarded if one were under a great deal of stress. Consequently, the findings regarding the contents in the stomach may not always be accurate.
Well, who told you that anyone was under a great deal of stress?
Who told me?
Yes, who told you that?
That's my opinion, that both of these victims would certainly be under a great deal of stress.
All right, well, what we're talking about is the stomach contents and the condition they existed before the time of death, officer. Isn't that correct? In other words, is that what we're talking about?
I don't know. I
right.
assumed you were asking me about stomach contents as they relate to time of death.
Yes, sir. Did you do anything to determine what time Mr. Goldman had his last meal?
No. Mr. Goldman had been working
I understand that.
several hours prior to that, and as far as my information was, he didn't have a meal. He may have eaten something, but
Well,
I had no information as to him eating a meal.
all right, would it be important in the course of your investigation to try and determine where Mr. Goldman went after he got off work?
Yes?
Did you do anything to try and determine that?
Yes.
And what did you do in that connection?
Detectives Tippin and Carr investigated at Mr. Goldman's apartment and found clothing that he had been wearing that night at work at Mezzaluna.
Was that clothing in a bag of some kind?
I don't recall if it was in a bag or not.
Did you look inside the pockets of that clothing?
Did I? No.
Did they look inside the pockets, if you know?
I don't know.
Do you know whether or not there were any notes found in or about the clothing of Mr. Goldman's?
None were brought to my attention.
May I ask you about some evidence? Bye-bye.
Sure. All right, Mr. Cochran.
May I approach her?
You may.
I want to place what I think is 30 for identification before you and ask you to open this bag and take the contents out. This purports to be Mr. Goldman's clothes he was wearing sometime earlier that evening. Is that correct? Is that correct, Detective Lane?
I'm checking. They appear to be, yes. Would you like me to remove them?
Yes, please.
Moving a pair of pants. Appears to be a shirt on a hanger.
All right, anything else in the bag?
There's an envelope, it appears to be.
Can you check that out?
One-piece screen paper with writing from brown paper bag dated 2/18/95.
All right, can you open that?
And tearing a piece of tape that's initialed on the back. It's a green scrap of paper.
All right, let's look at that paper. You seen this before?
No.
What is this paper?
Appears to be some kind of a shopping list.
A laundry list? A shopping list?
Yes.
All right, now this, what is, once you read what that has on it?
Vegetables, turkey, tomatoes, lettuce, chicken, asparagus, broccoli, sugar-free ice cream. You can't make out this one here. Pretzels, perhaps.
Have you ever seen that list before?
No.
And this bag, with regard to this is a pavilion's bag, Vaughn's pavilion's bag. How were these clothes recovered, and what's the connection of the bag with the clothes?
Once again, they were recovered by Detectives Tippin and Carr. I wasn't there. I couldn't answer that.
But it was booked in the Vaughn's pavilion bag along with this envelope. Is that correct?
Apparently.
Did the detectives and you see banana on there also?
Excuse me, Counselor. Without the reporter.
This bag and the envelope and the green list is now marked for evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Do you know who wrote that list?
No.
Had you ever seen that green list before this?
No, I haven't.
Have you looked inside those clothes, looked in the pockets inside those clothes before?
I have not.
Can you do that? You've now looked inside each of the pockets?
Yes.
All right, you find anything in there?
No.
All right. Now, and with regard to this list, we don't know at this point whose handwriting that is?
I don't. Correct.
All right, and is there, I was asking just before the clerk called us over, is there a banana on the top of that list, on the upper right-hand side of the list?
Yes.
This is Bonita Ecuador label. Is that a label found on bananas oftentimes?
I don't know.
You've never seen that?
No.
Now, with regard to these clothes, were these clothes recovered by the two detectives from the apartment that night?
That's my understanding.
And they then booked it into evidence thereafter in the condition we just saw it in. Is that right?
I believe so.
Did you, in the course of your investigation and the gentleman that you used in this investigation, did you ever try and ascertain whether or not after Mr. Goldman left work, he went someplace and ate?
I don't believe that came up due to the fact we believe that he went directly to his home and changed in the time that he left the Mezzaluna.
All right. Now, if he had a full stomach of food, undigested food, would that indicate to you that if he didn't eat at Mezzaluna and he still had a full stomach of food at the time of death, that he may have eaten someplace?
It's possible, sure.
All right. And as such, as an investigator...
Objection, that assumes fact, not evidence.
Sit. As an investigator, don't you want to determine all kinds of possibilities, sir? Can you ask the question?
All kinds of possibilities in regards to what?
Well, all the various possible scenarios. Don't you want to consider that?
Scenarios?
Well, let me rephrase it, sir. With regard to Mr. Goldman's stomach contents, that's an indication he had eaten something somewhere that night. Did you go back and check at Mezzaluna and determine whether or not he had a meal at Mezzaluna before he left?
I don't believe he did.
All right. So your answer is yes, you checked that, and he didn't. All right. If he didn't eat at Mezzaluna, as an investigator, did you then say, well, I better check and see where he had this meal, if any? Did you check that out? That's my question.
That did not come into play, no.
All right. So you didn't check it out. Is that your answer?
And I had no reason to.
All right. And the question is, did you check it out?
The answer is no.
All right. And so when you were at the coroner's office and at the time of the autopsy, with regard to these stomach contents, you have not had anyone in the coroner's office to try and determine, by looking at the stomach contents, when Mr. Goldman might have had his last meal. Is that, as we sit here now, is that correct?
That's what they do at the coroner's office.
I'm asking what you did in this case.
I didn't examine the contents. I don't examine stomach contents.
And did you have any expert, medical, forensic person look at these stomach contents to try and determine how long he'd had this meal before he died? Did you do that?
Did I do that?
Yes.
No, that would have been done by the coroner's office.
Did you ask the coroner, any coroner, to do that?
Again, that would be something that would fall under their purview.
And you would never make that suggestion to him at all?
To
To the coroner's office. Don't
do
you work
what?
together with him?
what suggestion?
that they look at the stomach contents to try to determine the time of death.
I believe the coroner's office does that. We don't normally dictate to them how to do their investigations.
And you made no suggestion to them at all regarding the stomach contents in this case.
I don't believe I did.
Do you have any reports from them regarding the Goldman stomach contents
Any reports on that
from the
would
coroner's office?
be in the coroner's protocol.
Did you ever have occasion to look at Mr. Goldman's beeper entries? You remember you described for us that he had a beeper there at the scene. Did you go back and try to look at earlier beeper entries on June 12th, 1994?
Yes,
All right, and what were the results of that?
there were none.
Now, with regard to the items found at the Goldman apartment, did you find any information where Mr. Goldman had Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's phone number there?
Again, I didn't investigate or examine anything at that location that may have happened. I don't recall seeing it.
Have you had occasion to look at the notes of items taken from, I guess, the Goldman apartment?
Not in some time.
All right, do you recall that Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's phone number appears twice in these copies? Do you recall that?
That may well be.
May I approach you?
You may.
If I were to show you a copy, would that refresh your recollection, perhaps?
Perhaps.
I was thinking about that, but then we started talking about content of the apartment again.
In our place before I've showed this to council. I want you to look at this, read this to yourself, first of all. It's DA 003953. You see that?
Yes.
And there's apparently a phone number there. Without reading that phone number, there's a phone number there also, right?
Yes.
And look also next at DA 003955. You see that name there?
Yes.
You see that phone number there?
That's correct.
Okay, does that appear to be Nicole Simpson?
Yes.
At her phone number?
Yes.
And so you see at least on 2 occasions her numbers found in these documents that were allegedly found in Mr. Goldman's apartment?
Yes.
And in fairness, there are other female numbers, other female names with numbers therein also.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
right?
Yes.
But her number's in there twice, is that right?
That's correct.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
All right, have you, by the way, have you had occasion to review these documents here, which purport to have come either from some kind of a booklet or something inside the apartment?
Not recently.
Did you ever review them?
I believe initially I did, yes.
Did you follow up on any of the names of the people contained in this information?
I don't recall if I specifically did, or Tippin and Carr did, or if it was done at all.
Did you find out what design wrap is? Design wrap, W-R-A-P, right?
No.
Was that a business that Mr. Goldman was involved in?
I don't know.
You never looked at that either?
No.
Did you ever consider that Mr. Goldman may have been the target of the assassin or assassins that particular night? Did you ever consider that at all?
The target of an assassin?
No. Was he the target of the perpetrators on June 12th, the perpetrator or perpetrators on June 12th, 1994, when he came to Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's residence? Did you ever consider that as a possible theory?
That he would be the target?
Yes, let me see if I can make it so you understand it. Did you ever, as the investigating officer in this case, ever consider any other theory than that O.J. Simpson was the only perpetrator in this case?
Any other theory?
Yes, any other theory, any other possibilities.
I had absolutely no other evidence that would point me in any other direction.
Did you ever consider that Mr. Goldman could have been a person followed to that location. Did you ever consider that at all?
I think it's entirely possible he was followed.
All right. Did you ever consider that something regarding him or his background may have led some persons or persons to follow him there to that location?
I had no evidence at all to suggest that.
And so did you ever pursue that or look at it at all?
There was nothing to pursue. There was nothing to show any evidence to that.
You never looked at any of the people in his book or made any determinations about his background? You didn't do that?
Again, I believe I did go through the book initially. I believe Tippin and Carr did. But there was nothing in that book to lead in any other direction.
All right, so you didn't do anything about that, right?
About,
Following up on any other leads or anything regarding Mr. Goldman.
I didn't see any other leads to follow up on.
All right. Now, with regard to Mr. Goldman, you've, I believe, shared with us that he drove a vehicle to Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's residence that night. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you know what time he got off work. Is that correct?
Yes.
You know at some point he came home. Is that correct?
I believe that's what happened, yes.
And were you aware of whether, and he changed clothes, is that correct?
Yes.
Are you aware of whether or not he showered before he left his place?
No.
You have no knowledge one way or the other?
No.
Do you know whether or not, when did Tippin and Carr get there? Were they able to make any kind of determination by getting to the scene or Mr. Goldman's residence quickly after these bodies were discovered?
They didn't respond till the next day, I believe.
So the next day would have been, what day, the 13th or the 14th?
I don't recall exactly. I believe it was the 14th.
So the 14th of June.
It may have been the 13th. I don't have their log, and I haven't looked at it in months.
All right. So at any rate, you can't tell us whether or not he showered or whatever. Is that correct?
I can't. That's correct.
You cannot tell us, and then you can't tell us whether or not he went and had a meal or ate with somebody, can you?
It's my information and my belief that he didn't.
All right, but yet you know that he had a stomach of food, an undigested food, isn't that correct?
I believe he did.
All right. You sit here now, you can't tell us when he ate that food, can you?
Specifically, no,
Yes.
but
All right.
I'm aware that he works at a restaurant and would
right,
have probably eaten during that time.
Sir, but did you not tell us you spoke at Metzaluna and they told you he had not eaten there that evening? Did you check on that?
Not necessarily to sit down and have a meal, but whether he was observed during his entire tour of duty there, I don't know. He may have well eaten something there.
Well, perhaps he did, but if he ate at 6 o'clock in the evening, you'd expect that would have been digested, would you not have?
Objection, this is beyond scope of expertise.
Well, that's common sense.
Objection, Your Honor, this is not a balance. We didn't know.
Foundation,
No foundation.
sustained.
Thank you.
With regard to, as a human being, as an investigator, as someone with common sense, if one eats a meal at 6 o'clock p.m., would you expect that that meal through the digestive processes would have started to become digested over a period of 4 or 5 hours? Would you expect that?
No foundation.
Sustained. Why don't you ask a few foundational questions?
Certainly. As a homicide investigator of 20-plus years, you've attended a number of autopsies, have you not?
Yes.
And you've seen stomach contents on numerous occasions, have you not?
Yes.
And you know something about the rate with which the body digests food, do you not?
Yes.
And you know that over a period of time the body will digest food and process it. You know that, don't you?
Yes.
You know that if a person has relatively undigested food, that's an indication that they have recently had a meal. Isn't that correct, sir?
Possibly.
Same objection. We have no foundation.
It's the foundation, Your Honor.
All right, overruled.
Thank you. Forgot what the question was now, Your Honor.
Sort of a rhetorical, an argumentative question in the sense that if you have full stomach contents,
Let me see if I can restate it in a fashion that will not be. And you know, based upon your experience, that if a person has a relatively full undigested stomach of food, it's an indication they've probably eaten recently before they met their death. Isn't that a fair statement?
Depends on what you mean by recently.
Well, within an hour or so.
Again, that's not necessarily true, and that digestion can be retarded.
Sir, if your digestion, of course, when you die, the digestive process stops. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
All right. And if you, are you telling us that this stressful situation the fight that took place between Mr. Goldman and whoever the perpetrator or perpetrators were that night lasted for a half hour or so, you think?
No.
Think it was a stressful situation that lasted for 15 minutes or more?
I don't believe it did.
Well, let's talk about the time before the stressful situation, when your body would normally process and digest food. Okay? In that instance, in this case, have you spoken to any expert forensic pathologist about the state of the stomach contents of Mr. Goldman that night, and whether or not that expert can help us and assist us in determining when Mr. Goldman had his last meal?
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant, beyond the scope.
It's very relevant, Your Honor.
Foundation.
It's
The court
relevant.
will testify.
Overruled. Speaking objection, Your Honor. Speaking objection. All right, you may answer. Have you?
Regarding time of death,
Yes.
yes, that, and the other factors, and a time of death was given to me between 9 p.m. and 12 midnight, closer to 9.
That's not the question I asked you. The question is, have you talked to a forensic pathologist with regard to Mr. Goldman's stomach contents? And has that forensic pathologist been able to look at the state of those stomach contents and assist us in determining when Mr. Goldman had his last meal?
Objection, asked and answered.
Specifically as to the stomach contents,
Yes.
no.
Okay, we're talking about stomach contents. No is the answer?
That's correct.
And so here we are, and you strike that. What doctors have you talked to with connection, forensic doctors you've talked to in connection with this case in your investigation? Can you give us their names?
Dr. Golden,
And he's the gentleman who performed the 2 autopsies?
that's correct.
Are you aware that the coroner's office has prepared a list of at least 16 items that they themselves...
Sustained.
I'd like to be heard on that, Your Honor.
Sustained.
All right. Now, with regard to Dr. Goldman, give us the name of any other doctors.
Dr. Lakshmanan,
And he is the coroner?
yes.
All right. Who else?
Dr. Sherry,
Spell that for us, please.
S-H-E-R-R-Y,
S-H?
S-H-E-R-R-Y.
All right. Whom else?
I believe that's it.
At any rate, when you were at the scene at Bundy in the early morning hours, you never dispatched any police officers to go to Mr. Goldman's home and search for any clues at that time, did you?
I didn't know where he lived at that time.
Well, you found out sometime that day, did you not?
I believe it was later on.
It was sometime on the 13th, wasn't it, officer?
I don't recall when it was.
Now, with regard to Mr. Goldman, I believe you've indicated to us that there were no bloody footprints which matched his shoes at the scene there at Bundy. Is that correct?
Yes.
And his shoes had quite a bit of mud under the bottom of them, did they not?
I believe there was mud or dirt.
And that was consistent with the area where you showed us earlier where this altercation took place and where the ground was dug up. Is that correct?
I would say so.
And was there did you find some sort of a stain or blood drop under his shoes at all?
There were blood droplets on the soles of his shoes, yes.
And were you, in the course of your investigation, were you able to ascertain how those blood drops or droplets got under his shoes?
I have an opinion how they got there.
You were not present, of course, right?
When the
You were
blood
not present at the
droplets
time
were
of this
deposited.
altercation? Yes.
No.
Hold on, counsel. You guys are driving the court reporter nuts this morning. You're both talking over each
All
other.
right. Sorry. Let me start over. You were not present, let me strike that, Your Honor. With regard to, was there one blood drop or more than one blood drop under Mr. Goldman's shoes?
More than one.
How many altogether?
There were several, I believe, in both soles of both shoes.
All right. And did you conduct some tests on those blood drops or try to conduct some tests to determine when those blood drops were placed there under his shoes?
I personally did not, but there were tests conducted.
All right. You didn't do it personally?
No.
But it was clear to you that he had not walked through any blood on that walkway that particular night. Is that correct?
I don't believe he did.
And so, in that instance, you strike that. You described for us earlier that you don't recall seeing any blood under the feet of Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson either. Is that correct? Can you tell us that?
That's correct.
And once you came to your conclusion, or you developed your theory that she was killed first, it's true, is it not? You never looked at any other possible theories. Isn't that correct?
My theory that she was killed, that's not my theory that she was killed first. That was in response to a question as to something that may have possibly happened.
Right.
I can't tell you who was killed first.
Is that your theory? That she
What?
was killed first?
No,
That's not your theory?
no,
You don't believe that?
I don't know,
All right. And you don't know because you weren't there. Is that correct?
certainly.
And isn't the whole reason, as a homicide investigator, don't you try to gather all of the facts together and then try to put those facts together and come to some kind of a well-reasoned conclusion? Don't you do that?
Certainly.
In the course of that, don't you need all of the facts as it relates to the case?
It's good to have all the facts, all that you can get, yes.
If you jump to a conclusion sometimes, don't you find out later that there were other things that you could have looked at by making a quick decision in a particular case? Isn't that true?
Objection, stay, is argumentative.
Sustain.
You would agree with me that it's not good investigative practices to rush to judgment in a case. Would you agree with that?
Certainly.
And in this case, you've described for us that these crimes occurred on the evening hours of June 12th, 1994. Is that correct?
Yes,
And I believe you shared with us early on that the complaint in this case was filed on June 17th, 1994. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And that was on a Friday. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And who was the district attorney who filed these charges?
Marcia Clark,
And Ms. Clark was at the scene of Rockingham on what date? What's the first time she came to Rockingham that you know of?
I believe she was there on the 13th.
On that Monday?
Yes.
And approximately what time?
I wasn't there, I don't know.
When you came back from being downtown at Parker Center after about 5 o'clock in the evening, was she there at that time, or had she left by that time, if you know?
I don't recall seeing her there.
You do not recall seeing her there?
I don't recall seeing her there Monday evening.
All right. Let me ask you a few questions about Rockingham. You described for us that you're going over to Rockingham from Bundy. You recall that?
Yes.
And with regard to this small red spot on the Bronco, did you see that yourself?
Yes.
Who pointed that out to you?
Detective Furman?
Mark Furman pointed that out to you also?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury the size of that, this purported red spot on the Bronco?
As to size, it certainly wasn't what I would call a dime size. It would probably be much smaller than that.
Would you say it was smaller than an eraser head on a pencil?
I'd say perhaps about that size, maybe smaller.
And when you were out there, did you have any pictures taken of this spot or speck?
I left before the photographer showed up.
Could you see that with the naked eye?
Yes.
And was it when you were shown this by Mark Furman, did you have your flashlight, or was it light out by this time?
It was light enough to see.
And when you were shown this by Furman, were you the only one there at that time?
I believe so. I think Phillips and Van Adder were down the street just a bit.
And if you know, were you the first one shown that in sequence?
I was the closest to Furman, so I believe I was.
All right, and he called you over and showed this to you. And after you saw this small, perhaps a eraser-head-sized spot or speck, did you at that point look inside the car yourself? Look inside this vehicle?
At that point, no.
You didn't look inside with the use of flashlights at all?
Not at that point, no.
And this was the vehicle that was parked kind of at this funny angle, is that correct?
It appeared to be jetting out. The rear end appeared to be jetting out a little bit, yes.
Now, you mentioned something about the fact that you had information, or you thought that the maid was supposed to be there. Where'd you get that information from?
It was relayed to me by Detective Phillips after speaking with West Tech.
This was a Sunday evening, early Monday morning, is that correct?
This was early Monday morning.
All right. And you're aware that maids have days off, are you?
Some do and some don't, I imagine.
And this was hearsay information that you got from Detective Phillips about the maid supposedly being there, is that correct?
That would be probably hearsay, yes.
Now, you saw
That's irrelevant here, so they're not in court.
Sustained.
you saw two vehicles in the driveway that evening?
Yes, that morning.
And at the time that you directed Mark Furman to go over this wall, at that point, had you focused on Mr. O.J. Simpson as a suspect in this case?
No.
So the things you'd seen up to that point did not cause you to believe he was a suspect, right?
Specifically recall discussing it with Phillips, Furman, and Van Adder that we felt we had an exigent circumstance and that someone inside could be bleeding or worse.
All right, so you were going in to save bodies, is that right?
We were going in to investigate if anyone, in fact, had been a victim, yes.
And before you went inside, did you look inside the Bronco anymore at all? Either visually or through the use of your flashlight?
I don't believe I did at that time, no.
You believe what?
At that time, no.
When both you and Van Adder were at the Rockingham scene, before you went over, had Furman climb over this fence, who was in charge?
It'd be Van Adder and myself working as partners. There wasn't one person who'd be in charge.
So you were both co-partners or co-lead investigators at that point?
Yes.
Now, you shared with us your notes. They were written chronologically at the scene on that particular date, June 13th, 1994. With regard to the alleged blood spots that were on the rear gate, did you ever write down or log that there were blood spots on that rear gate in your notes?
I don't believe it did.
And wouldn't that have been an important circumstance?
Not necessarily. That would fall under the purview of the criminalists collecting them.
I see. So a review of your notes indicates you didn't write that down, right?
I don't believe it did.
And that evidence, if it was there, was not collected until approximately 3 weeks later on July 3rd. Is that right?
That's correct.
And on July 3rd, you were going to show the DAs a walkthrough at that location. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. Clark and then Mr. Hodgman. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you called, as I understand, the criminalists to the scene after you got out there on July 3rd. Is that correct? After 10 o'clock in the morning?
I believe that happened, yes.
Are we going to something new on this? Because we've visited this once thoroughly before.
Yeah, this is just cover the shot.
All right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
With regard to the lighting that you saw at the Bundy location, do you recall testifying for the grand jury in this matter regarding the lighting and the condition of the lighting at the Bundy scene?
I recall testifying at the grand jury, but not as to the specifics of the lighting.
Well, let me ask you if you were asked these questions and gave these answers. I think it's page 2. I guess it. Question, sir. When you arrived, can you tell me if you noticed the lighting in the front of the building there? Was there any? Answer, there was a porch light up the porch. Question, up on the landing. Answer, yes. Question, does that illuminate the walkway? Answer, yes. Question, in any effective way? Answer, it would have illuminated it some way. The lighting, I wouldn't say was excellent, but it was far from being dark. It was illuminated. Is that refresh a recollection of your testimony to the grand jury?
I would say that if that's what it says, certainly that's what I said.
And as you think about it, as you sit here now, is that a fair you went on to say that was the condition you found it in, answer yes. Now, as you think about it, as you sit here now, is that a fair and accurate description of the lighting that you saw out on Bundy on that night of June 12th in the early morning hours of June 13th?
No, certainly that's not all the lighting. That was the porch light.
I know there's other lights, but is that with regard to the lighting that came from the porch light, is that a fair and accurate statement of the lighting that came from that porch light?
As to the walkway, yes.
All right. Now, there were other lights also, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And overall, would you say the lighting there was made the premises far from being dark?
Well, that would be a subjective call. It certainly wasn't pitch black to the extent you couldn't see anything. I'd say the lighting was poor, but still light enough where you could see certain things.
All right. With regard to the blood spots that were going in a westerly direction toward the rear of the 875 location, you remember those?
Yes.
You described for us, I believe, on direct examination that at one point you saw footsteps that turned toward the house. You recall that?
They appeared to, yes.
And it was... Can you point out, if I were to show you, which I believe is 43A, or have 43A put up. Can you get 43A? Perhaps you can point that out for us.
I believe you'll need to cut the feed for this photo.
Pretlow is looking at that. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
If you'd like, I'm going to place a photograph before you, and I'm not sure of the number of this photograph, but I see the photographer's number 112 in this photograph off to the left toward the house. I'm going to place this before you. Can you look at that photograph? Do you recognize what's depicted there?
Yes, this is the walkway looking west.
All right. Can you look at that photograph, and before I put it on the Elmo, and can you show me where those footsteps are that point toward the house?
No.
In that photograph, you can't show?
No.
I believe you were shown this photograph before, and you were able to say there was a distance of perhaps 3 feet between where there's a footprint and where you found a drop of blood. Is that correct? Approximately?
Looks like a little more, but yes, approximately.
All right. And what is your recollection regarding, there was a blood drop found at number of the card that indicates 112. Is that correct?
Yes.
What is your best recollection of how far behind that purported blood drop was the closest set of footprints?
I don't recall. I would have to look at the stride analysis or the schematic or some better photographs on this.
Did you not tell us there was some kind of a measurement with regard to the tile or whatever? How far are each of those tiles? What's the distance of each tile?
I believe it's 11.5 by 11.5.
And your recollection, your belief was that 112 was perhaps 3.5 feet from the nearest footprints. Is that correct?
I believe the nearest footprints depicted here. This is a very poor photograph, and it's hard to tell with the sunlight on there.
All right. This is one of your photographs, but I'll see if we can get a better one. Now, can you look on there and tell us where the footprints were turned toward the house?
No, again, if I could see a schematic or a better photograph.
Now, with regard to the, you mentioned a couple of times a stride analysis. you use some kind of an expert to determine whether or not the person who dropped this blood, was that person running or walking? Did you use somebody to try to make that determination?
There were persons who looked at that, yes.
Have you got a report in that connection? You can answer that yes or no.
Well, I have a partial report on the stride analysis. As to the blood, I don't.
You have a partial report on the stride analysis?
Yes.
It's your opinion that the person who was heading westbound toward that alleyway was dripping blood, is that correct?
Yes.
And in that connection, you and I discussed that that was a distance of approximately 120 feet, give or take, is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
And in that 120 feet distance from the front to the back, you found what you believe to be 4 blood drops, is that correct?
Well, it would be 5, including the one in the alley.
Well, there's one in the alley, which I'm separating out. That's in the alley.
Okay.
But 4 in this walkway area. Is that right?
That's correct.
4 blood drops in this 120 feet area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then the 5th one would be in the alleyway. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we established there's no way you could date those footprints, right?
Date the
You could
footprints?
date, you strike that. There's no way you could date any blood drops.
One cannot necessarily tell the age of a blood, no.
Right. And with regard to this matter, did you have an expert who did any kind of a blood spatter analysis regarding these blood drops?
There was someone who did look at blood spatter, yes.
And you have such an expert?
I don't, no.
By the way, with regard to the eyeglasses, were the eyeglasses ever checked or analyzed for any trace evidence that might be on them, on the glasses?
I don't believe so. I believe, in fact, that they are still in the envelope because tests are being conducted and were being conducted on the envelope.
All right, so your answer is you do not believe that the eyeglasses have been checked for trace evidence?
I don't know. That's been in the custody of the criminalist for some time.
All right, again, but now you talk about the criminalist. The criminalist works, however, under your direction, isn't that correct?
At the crime scene, yes.
And the criminalist is not a police officer.
That's correct. They're civilians.
Civilian employee.
Yes.
You call them to the scene, is that correct?
Generally, yes.
And in this case, do you remember what time you called the criminalist to the scene?
I did not call the criminalist. The criminalist, I believe, was called by someone else to the Rockingham location.
All right, who called them to the Rockingham location?
I had received information from my partner that the criminalist was en route there, so it was either him or he had someone do it.
So you're not for sure who called?
No.
But at any rate, so that we're clear, the criminalist went to the Rockingham scene before ever coming to the Bundy location, right?
Yes.
And what was your best approximation of what time did the criminalist arrive at the Bundy crime scene?
The Bundy crime scene, I believe the criminalists arrived at approximately 10:15, somewhere in there.
And that would have been approximately an hour after the coroner's investigator arrived there at about 9:10, isn't that correct?
Yes.
In your investigations, do you normally like to have the criminalist there before the coroner arrives?
Under ideal circumstances, I would like everyone there as soon as they could get there.
And as early as possible, isn't that a fair statement?
Certainly.
Helps you do your job better, isn't that correct?
I would say so.
So in this instance, if Risky arrived at the scene at 12:10, the first criminalist on the scene would have been there about after 10 o'clock, 10:15? So perhaps that would be 10 hours and 5 minutes later? Is that right?
I believe that's the way it figures, yes.
The bodies had been moved by the time the two criminalists got there?
I believe they arrived at the time that they were getting examined by the and moved, yes, about that time.
Now, Your Honor, there's an exhibit that I think I want to check with counsel. have to second. Exhibit defendant's 1039, Your Honor.
All right. With the reporter, please.
Detective Lang, who were the criminalists who ultimately came to the Bundy location on the early morning hours of June 13th, 1994?
Fung and Mazzola.
And what does the initials OIC mean?
Objection paid, relevant.
Overruled.
What does OIC mean?
I don't know.
Are you familiar with a form called the Crime Scene Investigation Checklist?
I believe it's a form that's used by criminalists in the field.
Have you seen that form before?
I probably have.
And with regard to the term search team, OIC name, do you know what that means?
I could only assume it's scientific.
Objection speculation.
Overruled.
It's a scientific investigation division form. I'm assuming that would be their criminalist search team at a crime scene.
All right, and as between Mazzola and Fung, who was the most experienced, if you know?
I believe Fung.
And were you aware of how many crime scenes before this Mazzola had worked on before this particular case in June 13th, 1994?
Objection hearsay, relevant.
If he knows.
Overruled, if you know.
Not at that time, no.
Now, you had worked with Fung before this date of June 1994? You knew him?
I knew who he was. I don't recall working any specific cases with him.
And as between Mazzola and Fung, if you know, which was the officer in charge? Which of the two of them were in charge?
I would have said Fung.
All right. May I show him this form, Your Honor, at this point now?
Objection, no foundation.
1039.
You can show it to him.
Thank you.
See if it refreshes any recollection.
Ask you whether or not 1039 refreshes recollection as to which was in charge.
Objection, that was not the question. And there's no need for refreshing recollection as to who was in charge, as detective has indicated he
Overruled.
knows. What is irrelevant, Your Honor?
Overruled.
Do you want my interpretation of this?
No, I
No,
want you
just
to read it
whether
to
or not,
yourself.
whether or not it refreshes your recollection as to which criminalist was in charge.
No.
Does not refresh recollection?
No.
All right. By the way, this particular form, is this the form that you thought it was? It's a criminalist form?
No, it's not.
All right. What is this form then? Crime Scene Investigation Checklist.
This is a form used by Scientific Investigation Division for their purposes.
And that's part of the LAPD?
It's part of the LAPD. It's not a form that I use or am familiar with.
All right. Have you ever seen that form before?
I believe in this case I probably have. Yes, it's in. It should be part of SID's notes.
All right. And as such, as between Fung and Mazzola or Mazzola and Fung, you didn't call either one of them on that particular day, is that right?
No.
A little bit more, so,
Keep going.
but now, all right, there you go. You're not finished. Now, were you present at the Bundy location when the knit cap was taken by someone, by the criminalist presumably, and be booked into evidence?
I don't know if I was there or not.
Do you have any independent recollection of that at all?
No.
Do you remember seeing Fung at that location?
Oh, yes.
Do you remember seeing Mazzola at the location?
Yes.
Do you remember whether or not at some point Fung was placing items of evidence into a paper bag of some kind?
I don't recall specifically seeing him do that. I recall him being with the glove, and when I examined the glove, and putting it in the bag at that time, but I believe that was in the criminalist wagon in the truck.
All right. We talked briefly about this before. You had asked and was assisted, you were assisted by Phillips in calling the coroner's office for the first call. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in your notes that you wrote down, you indicated something about the call being at 7:35, is it? That call was later than 7:35, is that correct?
I don't recall writing 7:35.
Well, let's refer to your notes. The crime scene notes, I think it's 054 is what I see. Counsel, the first page, Detective.
0547?
Yes, I-7 is cut off. Do you see at the very top there? It says something about Heath notified. You see that?
Yes.
It seems like that was written over. What does that say in your notes?
Foreign investigator Heath notified 0735.
Okay, 0735, that's 7:35 in the morning?
Yes.
And you know now from the reports in this case that the coroner was first called at perhaps 6:49, 6:50 in the morning, is that right?
Something like that, yes.
And that the second call was about 8:08 in the morning, is that correct?
I don't recall, but perhaps, yes.
All right, at the time that you had Phillips call the coroner the first time, did you know that Mr. Goldman and Ms. Brown Simpson had died from knife wounds?
The time of the first coroner's notification?
Yes, the one just before 7 o'clock in the morning.
Not for sure, no.
Well, you didn't think they'd been bludgeoned to death, did you?
Didn't appear to be.
And you could see both their bodies, could you not?
Yes.
And you didn't think they'd been shot, did you? At that point?
I couldn't say.
You had no idea at all?
I felt that it could have been a combination of things, certainly. We more or less reserve judgment until the coroner's investigator gets there and we can examine further.
And would you subscribe to the theory that they, in telling the coroner's investigator that we don't know whether these bodies were bludgeoned to death or shot, is that was the state of your mind at that time when the coroner's first call was made, shortly before 7 o'clock on June 13th, 1994?
I didn't know.
All right. Did you ever at any time before it was collected ever examine this glove that we've seen depicted at the Bundy location?
Did I examine it?
Yes, sir.
When?
Early that morning, before it was ever collected by anyone.
In the presence of Mr. Fung, yes.
And this is before Fung, did Fung collect it after that, if you know?
I believe it had been collected.
And by collected, what do we mean?
Picked it up. I believe it had been picked up. In fact, what I testified to is I observed it in the truck. He was pointing out to me that there were to be careful of the glove, that there were hairs and fibers on it.
Fung pointed this out for you?
Yes.
Correct. And with regard to that glove, there are Caucasian hairs on that glove, isn't that correct?
I don't know.
You don't know that whether there were Caucasian hairs on that glove?
No.
Were there Caucasian hairs on either of the gloves?
I don't know.
You have no knowledge of that at all?
I've heard that I don't have
Not what you heard, just what you know.
How else would he know?
Well, I'm asking what he knows, and he'll have to tell us as the investigator, Your Honor, but not...
All right, wait,
It's not a hearsay.
wait, and he'll have to tell us after lunch.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the noon hour at this time. Please remember my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. Do not conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you finally. Detective Lang, you're excused, ordered back for 1:30. Ladies and gentlemen, 1:30. We're in recess. So, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Bailey, Mr. Cochran, are you prepared to go forward?
I'm prepared to go forward, Your Honor. And there's probably at some point I'm going to need Mr. Harris for the Elmo, et cetera, but I can go forward.
All right.
I guess I presume they're all locked out of the...
Well, we have Mr. Fairwell, who could probably assist us.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's have
Switch hitter.
Only if the defense pays for them. Files cost you too much money.
All right, give me back the money for those potato chips.
I take that back.
them to be quiet. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, my apologies to you for the delay in getting started. We had a bomb scare down on the bottom floor, and the sheriffs and the LAPD had to evacuate 2 of the floors. They had to stop all the elevators. This is a day we started out, things were going so well, and naturally something had to happen. So that's the reason for the delay. The building has been secured, it's not a problem, and we're ready to proceed. And as spectators trickle in, there'll be a little more disruption than normal, because normally when we start the court session, nobody's allowed to enter the courtroom. But because of the late start, I'm going to let people sort of wander in on Scout's honor, that they'll be quiet as they do so. All right, Mr. Cochran, you may resume with your cross-examination.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Detective Lang. Over the lunch hour, were you able to find that Bonita Ecuador label, the picture thereof?
I believe it's in evidence. I didn't get it.
You believe it's in evidence where? In this courtroom?
No, I believe it's at Scientific Investigation Division.
All right, do you have a photograph of it?
There's a overall photograph, as I stated, but there's not a close-up photograph. It's not a very good photograph.
And do you have that with you?
No.
All right, and what does this overall photograph show?
It shows looking down on the walkway at the stationary gate to the south, at the south side of the walkway.
And if you saw an overall photograph now, could you point it out for us?
Yes.
Because it's not been marked in this case, has it?
I don't believe so.
All right, let me see if I can find one. You can at least give us an approximation of where this label was found. All right?
Mr. Fairlow, you want to give Mr. Cochran a hand fishing for those exhibits, please? So we don't lose the easel again.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, Mr. Fairlow will give you a hand with the...
Thank you. Can we step down also, Your Honor?
Certainly.
Got three now, briefly show, put on the board, it's, plan is 43.
All right, photographers are directed not to take any photographs of this item.
Specifically 43D.
All right, 43D as in David.
D is in David. Well, we're here. On 43D, can you show us where this Bonita Ecuador label is found in relationship to the post of the front gate? All right, Your Honor, he's pointing to an area just to the right of the post on the south side of the walkway. Is that right? On the south side of the walkway? It's a little, it's like a little label.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
That's depicted in 43D.
Yes.
All right. Have you seen any other photographs which are clear with regard to that?
No.
Excuse me, Your Honor, with Mr. Fairlow's assistance, we have located one that does actually depict this label. Appears to
Right.
be a fruit type label, right there. And we can put it on the Elmo and blow it up if you want.
I'll mark this as defendant's next in order, Your Honor.
1047.
1047.
All right, people's, excuse me, defense 1047.
1047. Put it on the Elmo, and then I think everyone can see it. And can you see, let's clear it up first. All right, now, can you see on your monitor?
Yes,
And is that a foot, is that a man's shoe?
appears to be that one, yes.
All right, and is that, will you point out for us, or let me ask you this, is the Bonita Ecuador label to the left of that man's left shoe there?
Yes, to the left of the shoe and to the right of the post.
All right, and that's the post on the south side of the walkway at the front gate, is that correct, sir?
At the stationary gate to the south of the walkway, yes.
All right, and that's the location, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Fairlawn. Your Honor, while we're about it, and we're looking at photographs, let me put people's 48 identification. This now placed Detective Lang, people's 48 and 48A. It's a larger photograph I showed you this morning. I want you to look at the card label 112. What is that?
112 indicates the location of a blood drop.
All right, and can you show us the closest footprint to that drop?
Appears to be footprint here.
All right.
Little tough to tell because of the lighting. Perhaps another one here.
All right. In the foreground, there are some what appear to be footprints.
This appears to be one here, yeah.
Now, can you see on that photograph 48A where you say there's a point where the individual turns toward the building and there are two footprints that are going toward the building? Can you see that depicted from that photograph?
It'd be approximately this area here.
And now you're referring to an area in the center, about the center of 48A, is that correct?
Yes.
And describe for the jury how those footprints, which direction they were pointed to shoot.
The front was more or less pointed towards the left, indicating someone may have been turning around.
All right.
Turning back.
Is that the only place that you see shoe prints pointing toward the particular building?
Yes.
While you're up, sir, with regard to 48, yeah, you recall that there was some berries or some kind of plant material on that back gate as you walked out the walkway there?
Quite a bit of debris, yes.
And tree above that, those berries or whatever?
There are bushes and trees off to the right of the photograph here.
All right. With regard to this trash can back here depicted on 48J, is that one of the areas that was searched either for weapons or any kind of bloody clothes or whatever?
Yes.
Does this picture here seek to illuminate or portray that?
Yes.
And so to be clear again, on the right side, on the north side of this Jeep Cherokee, that's where some of this change was found, is that correct?
Yes.
And so I'm not totally clear, Detective Lane. Did you find 1 dime and 1 penny, or 2 dimes and 2 pennies?
My recollection is 1 dime and 1 penny.
And is that what was booked?
Yes.
Can you look, excuse me, can you look, take a look at your notes in your report and see if there's an indication that there were really 2 dimes and 2 pennies? Look at page 0555.
States 2 dimes and 2 pennies in the driveway north of the Jeep.
And is that what's depicted in that area, 48, is that 48F, I guess it was, near the trash can?
Seems to me there's 1 dime and 1 penny.
Well, what does your report say?
The notes say 2 dimes and 2 pennies.
Well, you wrote that? Is that in your handwriting? Or which is it, 2 dimes and 2 pennies or 1 dime and 1 penny?
I observed 2 dimes and 2 pennies, if that's what's written there.
All right, that was written contemporaneously with your observation, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, if you only booked 1 dime and 1 penny, why would you do that?
I didn't book anything. The criminalist collected and booked all those items.
Well,
Detective, can I get you to use the microphone there, please? Thank you.
but this would have been pointed out to the criminalist by you. They did what you'd ask them to do, presumably, is that correct?
That's correct.
And if you saw 2 dimes and 2 pennies, would you ask them to book 2 dimes and 2 pennies?
Certainly.
You wouldn't leave evidence out there, would you?
No.
And this is the same area, however, where near the right front tire of this particular Jeep, this small blue glass plastic heart was located, isn't that right?
That's correct.
And that blue plastic heart, was that also pointed out by you to the criminalist?
I believe so.
And I think that our testimony was it was not booked until August, is that right? August
Yes.
94? Do you know when the dime and penny or dimes and pennies were finally booked?
I'd have to consult the criminalist report.
Do you have that in your report there? Can you do that for us?
Yes.
All right, excuse me, Mr. Cochran, perhaps we could have Mr. Douglas or one of your assistants move that diagram back because it's blocking the view of some of the jurors of Detective
No, I
Blank.
can do it. I can do it.
That's Blank.
Look there.
That's Blank. Thank you.
Yes, it's in the criminalist report, item 53.
And what does that report indicate?
Dime and a penny totaling 11 cents recovered from the driveway.
6 feet east of the west gate.
Presumably that was what was booked as evidence?
Correct.
What date was that booked?
On 6/15/94.
You saw this on 6/13, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, what, and the plastic heart, do you have the date that was actually booked?
Booked on August 25, 94.
That is the plastic heart.
Yes.
Okay, and if there's not too much trouble, what date was the Bonita Ecuador label booked?
The June 15th also.
And they were first seen on the 13th, is that correct?
Yes.
And again, your manual calls, the Los Angeles Police Department manual calls for evidence to be booked as soon as possible, isn't that correct?
Under certain guidelines. That is a guide. It's not a hard and fast rule. If there's evidence that's constantly coming in, well, it wouldn't necessarily be booked immediately.
Well, Detective, I understand that it's a guideline, but you're not supposed to carry evidence around with you in your pocket or take it home if you can book it. Isn't that correct?
Generally not.
Okay. As a matter of chain of custody, isn't the best procedure?
Objection, the witness obviously did not finish his answer.
Sustained.
Counsel, you
Do you have more to say, sir?
There are times when evidence would be secured in our office at Robbery Homicide Division.
All right. We're talking about in a usual procedure, if you see evidence at the scene, the best procedure would normally be to secure that evidence, bring it back, and book it, and keep the chain of custody intact. Isn't that correct?
That would be the preferable method unless some other situation existed preventing that.
And that's what your manual has in mind when it talks about booking evidence as soon as possible. Isn't that correct?
As a guide, yes.
And that's where you were trained. Isn't that correct, sir?
Again, yes, as a guide.
Okay. And as a guide, in this case, the sneakers were not booked the same day they were recovered, were they?
They couldn't have been.
All right. And the
I think we've gone through this, haven't
right.
we?
I'm moving on, Your Honor. Neither was Mr. Simpson's blood was not booked the same day it was recovered, was it?
The witness had nothing to do with that.
If he knows, Your Honor, he was there.
He wasn't there.
How do we
Were
know
you there?
that?
I was at the Rockingham location later that evening
When the blood was there, wasn't it?
when it was brought by.
Right, with Van Etter, right?
Yes,
All right. And was Fung there at that time?
I believe he was.
Did you ever see Van Etter give that blood to Fung?
No.
Now, that was on June 13 after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, is that correct?
Yes.
And you previously told us that on June 14th, the next day, which would be Tuesday, you were downtown at the SID lab, is that correct?
Yes,
As early as 7 o'clock that morning?
that's correct.
And the blood was booked finally at what time?
Objection.
Do you know?
Apples and oranges.
Wait.
I know that we have 24 hours to book blood, and I know it was turned over to the criminalist. Aside from that, I don't know anything about it.
You don't know what time it was turned over, actually?
No.
If you looked at your chronological record for June 14th, 1994, would that tend to refresh your recollection?
I can check.
Can you look at that? And look at page 00007.
Okay.
And is that an indication that you were at the SID lab on 6/14/94 at about 7 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
And this is in your own handwriting?
Yes, it is.
When you talk about conferring with criminalists Matheson and Wong, who's Wong?
Wong is another criminalist who was present.
All right, that's not Fung. Somebody
No.
else?
I don't believe Fung was at that location.
How could you confuse Fong and Wong?
I was just asking, I said that wasn't Fung or Wong. Wong He has Wong here, and I'm asking whether that was not Fung, because I don't see Fung down here. Let me ask another question. Did you indicate earlier that Fung, that the blood was turned over to Fung the next morning? Did you indicate that at some point?
Mr. Simpson's blood?
Yes.
I may have indicated that it was by my partner.
All right. And in your notes, I'm just trying to find out whether or not at any time we were at that lab that morning you saw Fung, not Wong, but Fung.
I don't recall seeing him. That's not his normal office. He's out of Northeast Station. I don't recall seeing him there. What I would have done is written down the names of the persons who were present.
All right. Now, what is the basis for your statement that you have to book blood within 24 hours?
You alluded to the manual, and that's in the manual that we have 24 hours in which to book blood.
Doesn't it also say you should book it absolutely as soon as possible?
I believe this is 24 hours.
Doesn't it say you're supposed to book it as soon as possible, however, though?
Again, in regards to blood, I believe it does say within 24 hours.
All right, does it say it's booked as soon as possible and no later than 24 hours?
As far as blood, I don't believe so. I believe it's 24 hours.
Is it also supposed to be refrigerated as soon as possible, the blood?
From what I understand, that's preferable.
And would it be appropriate to take blood home with you at night and bring it back the next morning?
Take blood home?
Yes, to take a vial of blood home and book it the next morning after you took it, let's say at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30 in the afternoon on a given day.
I've never heard of that happening. I would not do that, no.
You wouldn't do that?
No.
Now, in the course of your investigation in this case, did you or Detective Payne, under your direction, have occasion to investigate a complaint by Miss Nicole Brown Simpson of annoying phone calls?
I did not.
Leave it alone. All right.
All right, thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Now, with regard to, I'd asked some questions earlier about Faye Resnick. Do you know where Faye Resnick was on the date of June 12th, 1994? I'll look it up here. In the course of your investigation in this case, did you ever look at the possibility that drugs were a factor in these killings?
Superficially, we looked at the possibility of drugs. However,
You've answered the question. You looked at the possibility of drugs. I asked, did they ever look at the possibility of drugs? He answered that. He said, yes,
You can answer
superficially.
yes or no.
Yes. Did you answer yes, superficially?
yes,
And in that connection, did you look at the background of Faye Resnick between the period of June 3rd, 1994, and June 12th, 1994?
no.
Were you aware that she had moved in with Nicole Brown Simpson at some time after June 3rd of 1994, on or after June 3rd, 1994? Were you aware of that?
I had heard that.
All right. Were you aware that on or about June 8th, 1994, she was placed in a drug I'm asking if he became aware, Your Honor, if I can finish the question. I'm asking if he became aware in the course...
It's assuming facts that aren't in evidence. Sustain.
You, of course, have read or heard a tape statement taken from Faye Resnick, have you not?
I don't believe I've heard that statement, no.
Have you read or heard a statement taken from Dr. Christian Reichhardt?
I don't believe so.
Do you know where Faye Resnick resided after June 8th, 1994?
No.
You talked with Cora Fishman in connection with your investigation in this case.
I have not personally, no.
But she's one of the witnesses that you've had talked to by other investigators?
She was a non-cooperative witness. We attempted to speak with her several times, yes.
Have you seen a statement from her at this point?
I don't believe there's a statement.
Well, in this superficial investigation you did regarding the possibility of drugs, what did you do?
In any murder, there's always the possibility of drugs.
Can you answer my question? What did you do with regard to your superficial investigation regarding drugs in this case, not any murder?
Overruled. Go ahead and answer the question.
Considered the possibility that drugs may have been involved by looking for evidence of drugs at the scene or becoming aware of any knowledge that the victim might have had something to do with drugs. That's normally something we would do. We had another direction to go. This particular case, we had another direction to go.
And with regard to gathering evidence, sir, you have to go out. Part of being an investigator is to investigate to try to turn up evidence. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And if you knew that there were individuals who had lived at this residence who might have some bearing on drugs, would it be reasonable for you to go and talk to those individuals, you personally, as the lead investigator?
If you had no other direction to go, and that was the logical sequence of events, yes.
All right, and once you make a decision that there's only one direction to go, then you don't go and look at anything else. Is that correct, sir?
No, that's not the case at all. If there is certain evidence pointing in one direction, you'd be remiss not to follow up on it.
All right,
That's the situation here.
Doesn't that mean you also should follow other evidence also?
If it's available, if there is other evidence, we certainly would.
And did you follow up in this case, the other evidence regarding drugs?
There was no other evidence.
Did you talk to Faye Resnick personally?
I did not.
Did Van Adder talk to her personally?
I believe he interviewed her, yes.
Is that a tape statement?
I believe it is.
Will he be testifying later on this week?
I don't know.
Still your partner?
That's correct.
You've talked to him about his conversation with Faye Resnick, did you not?
Briefly,
Did you talk to anyone else in your superficial examination or investigation regarding the aspect of drugs?
no.
In the course of your investigation, does the Los Angeles Police Department ever use dogs for tracking or maintaining scents in any homicide case that you know about?
I've never heard of that.
You've never done that in the 20-plus years you've been a homicide detective?
Never done it. I've never heard of it.
Now, right before we broke today at lunch, I was asking you about hairs on the gloves. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do your reports indicate whether or not there were Caucasian hairs on the glove found at Bundy?
The report does indicate Caucasian hair, yes.
All right, were there any Caucasian hair found on the other glove that was found?
That's my information, yes.
On both gloves?
I believe
Caucasian hairs?
so.
Were there Negroid hairs found on either or both of those gloves? If you recall.
I don't recall.
Forgive me if I asked you this before. With regard to this walkway where the bodies were found, what is the width of that particular walkway? If you can tell us.
Offhand, I believe it's 3 feet 11 inches or 4 feet.
Right at 4 feet?
Approximately 4 feet. I
And
believe it
if-
varies.
I'm sorry.
I believe it varies a little bit.
Okay, but somewhere close to 4 feet. Is that a
Yes.
fair statement? If you recall, did your partner, Detective Van Adder, change clothes at all on the afternoon of June 13th, 1994?
I don't recall him changing clothes.
You have no recollection of that?
I don't think he had any clothes to change into.
All right. Were the two of you in separate cars when you left Parker Center?
Yes,
You drove back to Rockingham separately?
that's correct.
The vehicle that Mr. Kalin had parked the curb there at Rockingham in the morning, early morning hours of June 13th, was that a Nissan Z vehicle?
I believe so.
In your report at the Bundy crime scene, I think there's a reference to a dumpster in the alley. And is that dumpster in the alley, do you have any photographs of that, where that was located?
Yeah, I believe there are, yes.
And was that one of the places that were searched for either bloody clothes or weapons or knives or things of that nature?
Yes.
And I presume you didn't find anything in connection with this case, right?
That's correct.
Now, in that connection with regard to knives, you recovered a number of knives that were turned into you in connection with the search or searches done after June 13th, 1994. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you participate in purchasing a knife yourself?
No.
Now, with regard to Mr. Goldman, did your investigation at any point turn up that he was a young man who worked out regularly, was physically fit,
That's my understanding.
and that in some of the cards that you found in his materials, you saw the card of a personal trainer and a gym that he might have attended also, did you not?
I believe there was one, yes.
And were you able to ascertain how many wounds, if any, he sustained at the time of his demise?
Kind of vague, isn't it? Wounds?
Yes, sure, certainly, Your Honor. Thank you. Were you able to ascertain how many times Mr. Goldman was stabbed during the incident in which he met his death?
Oh, were you present at the autopsy?
Yes, Your Honor.
Next question.
Were you able to ascertain? the number of
Seems to
stab
me
wounds?
there were 7 or 8 stab wounds.
7 or 8, is that the total number?
As far as stabbing wounds, I believe so.
And were the other wounds?
There were slashing wounds, superficial cuts,
All right, so
I believe a contusion,
stab wounds, slashing wounds, contusions. How-
abrasions, contusions to the rear of the hands and fingers.
Altogether, how many wounds were there, if you know, based upon your observation of the autopsy?
As to each abrasion and contusion,
Yes, altogether.
I would have no idea. If you were to count each abrasion and each contusion on each finger and the back of the hand,
I understand.
as far as fatal wounds, I believe there were something like 4 fatal wounds.
Now, in the course of your investigation in this matter, did you at any time ever investigate any relationships with Mr. Goldman may have had to determine whether or not he had any enemies, anything of that nature?
I spoke with a former girlfriend, and there were other interviews by other detectives.
All right, let's talk about what you did. When did you do that?
I don't call the specific.
Well, approximately, when did you have this interview?
There's an interview on file. I don't recall. I don't know.
All right, is that the only interview that you conducted, sir?
In
Personally?
regards to a former girlfriend, I believe, yes, the only one I conducted.
Did you talk to any other former friends or present friends?
Personally, I did not.
Did you have occasion to investigate Mr. Goldman's contact with a business called Design Wrap, W-R-A-P?
I did not.
Did anybody on your direction do that?
I would have to look. I don't recall that.
And where would you look?
Much of that investigation initially was conducted by Detective Tippin and Carr, perhaps in their log, perhaps in their book.
All right. Now, at the crime scene, among officers and people who come to a crime scene, eating and drinking are not permitted. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And officers are trained not to eat and drink at crime scenes. Isn't that correct?
In the specific crime scene, certainly that's correct, yes.
And you testified in this matter, at least earlier, that if you saw someone doing that, you'd jump on them right away, right?
If I saw them, yes.
All right. And if you saw even anyone from the coroner's office eating or drinking, you would curtail that activity also, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Something that you wouldn't want to have. Is that correct?
If it were outside of the crime scene, I don't have a problem with it. If it were certainly near evidence, certainly near the bodies, yes.
We're talking about inside the crime scene.
That's my same response.
And with regard to someone smoking, you wouldn't allow that either, would you,
Not at the crime scene.
in the crime scene? Now, last week when I asked you, you were sharing with us that you took these sneakers and you put them in the trunk of your car and took them home. Do you recall that?
Yes.
I'd like to show you a video at this point now, if I can, Your Honor.
Yes, we have. Please, Cal, let me see you with the court reporter, please. far as the jury is concerned, we're going to stand in recess now until tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I need to look at some videotapes out of your presence. Remember my admonitions to you: don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, don't form any opinions about the case, don't let anybody contact or communicate with you with regard to the case, nor are you to perform any deliberations till the matter has been finally submitted to you. All right? We'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. All right, Deputy McNair, let's take the jury.
Step out this point. Detective Lang, step out there.
Yeah, Mr. Harris, why don't you hold it there?
Hold on.
All right, Detective Lang, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock.
Yes, John.
Thank you. All right, witness is withdrawn from the courtroom, Mr. Harris.
We have that additional portion.
Since we have the VCR running at this time, may I inquire of the defense, is there any other videotape that they wish to show the witness? They've alluded to people eating and drinking
Not
and other things already.
Mr. Glazer,
You know, this videotape, I believe, is the one we played on January 24th that's already been marked and is a court exhibit. There was a second videotape we played in connection with the opening that didn't get marked, but it was played. The defense was provided a copy, or the prosecution, of both of those tapes back around the time of opening. Since this excerpt was made, I took all of the tapes of clips that we have, put them all on a 2-volume set, which was provided again to the prosecution, I think on Friday. 2 volumes. It has everything put together. There's a lot of duplication, but it's all there. So they've had this for quite some time. They have it again. They can look at it anytime they want. Those are all the videos that we have up until we recently subpoenaed some more from some television stations. I don't know. We're still waiting for those to come in. But up until a week or so ago, this is everything we have, tapes from all the stations.
You know, I appreciate counsel's invitation to us to look at the videos that he's given us, but we have hours, a number of hours of videos, so we can't anticipate which 10-second segment of the hours of videos they've given us that they intend to present to a witness. But as for this particular video, our objection to this videotape stands. It's irrelevant. What does it prove or disprove?
All right, Mr. Carr.
I think we've done what the court asked us to do. I think it's clearly impeaching, and door closes. I'd like to show it tomorrow morning. You're to protect the court recalls his testimony. This is contrary to his testimony. I want to show it and move on.
Well, if you recall, my concern was that it just abruptly stops at one point and doesn't show him actually drive off. And his testimony is that he put the shoes in the trunk, as I recollect, and then drove from the scene. And it appears that he gets into the car, closes the door, and but the car doesn't move. But I have to tell you that given the crush of news photographers and other people, it's unlikely that he would have opened the door and gotten out and done anything other than drive off at that point, preferably driving over some of the reporters there. But, I mean, I can't think that he would get out of that car and do other than drive away. So, any other comment? All right, I'm going to allow the tape.
Thank you.
All right, anything else we need?
As I understand it, Mr. Darden is asking, is any other tapes be shown to this witness? No.
Okay.
All right, how much
Okay.
more do you anticipate, Mr. Carter?
With Detective Lang?
All right, what's your guess, Ms. Clark, as far as redirect?
How long was it?
Hour. So we should be able to conclude Detective Lang tomorrow morning?
Then there's recross, so.
For the record, we were given an hour and a half or so of videotaped information just this past Friday, and so the council was aware we object to the introduction of any portion of that videotape, and we would ask that council discuss with us his intention to use any portion of that tape prior to actually presenting it to a witness or flashing it in front of the jury.
What tape is that?
All right, well, the court will view out of the presence of the jury any videotape before it's shown to the jury. All right, anything else, counsel, on this issue? All right, let's move on to the, I'm sorry, Mr. Bailey.
Witness list of last Friday remains constant. You had moved from and up ahead of two others.
All right, so we're still on the schedule that the prosecution has previously provided the defense. Okay. All right, do you have is Mr. Hodgman available to discuss our discovery matters with Mr. Scheck? All right. Is he on his way down? Are the elevators operating? All right, Mr. Scheck, my understanding is this is just a matter of making additional samples available for longer periods of time?
There were three matters at issue.
All right, before is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, the one thing that I think was of the most immediate concern is there's a courier en route to Washington. I think we had raised that earlier with the court.
Well, let's wait till Mr. Hodgman gets
Right.
here. I just want to know if that's what the issue is.
Did you see the letter?
Yes, I got it faxed to me this afternoon. I read it once. What's our ETA on Mr. Hodgman?
Shoes, now identified as item number 415, are here. I received a phone call just as I was leaving for court confirming that those shoes had just been transferred from the property division to the scientific investigation division. So the shoes are not in Washington, D.C. They are not at the FBI lab. They are here in Los Angeles. We have a courier en route to Washington right now to pick up the socks and return with them to Los Angeles tomorrow. If the court will recall its order of February the 8th, the court stated that examination and testing shall be conducted locally unless good cause is made by affidavit or other similar showing. With regard to item 1, the socks and the shoes, I would submit that no good cause has been shown and that we will make those items available locally at the LAPD Scientific Investigation Division, but there is no need for the people to incur the additional expense of rerouting our courier to New Haven, Connecticut, and no need has been demonstrated.
All right, let's take it up item by item. All right, Mr. Scheck, with regards to the shoes and the socks.
Well, the first point to be made is that, as the letter indicates, and I'm sure we'll get into, there was a lot of confusion, unfortunately, on Saturday as to where important items of evidence were that impeded examination. And it was believed at the time on Saturday that those shoes were in Washington. So, and we spoke to Mr. Hodgman, called him before this letter was even faxed, apprised him of this situation, and I think it was his last inquiry just before he came down here, we was able to determine where the shoes were. So that's the reason, but the key point is the
Throw all that
socks.
aside, Mr. Scheck. Forgive me for interrupting
Sure.
you, but let's sort of cut to the chase.
to the point.
We got the shoes, we got the socks. Both are going to be here. The shoes are here, the socks will be here tomorrow. Correct?
That's the problem. As the court recalls, we set up this examination at LAPD painstakingly over the last 2 weeks. It was anticipated, certainly, that the testing at the FBI would be done. I think it was a week ago Monday, so that the socks would be here and we could have an examination of the socks, the shoes, the dress, the shirt, the relevant items of evidence, Mr. Bodziak's reports, so all that evidence could be looked at as a whole intelligently by our experts. As the court recalls, because of this courier problem, that they didn't want to send a courier out earlier in the week to bring the sock back so that it could be produced on Saturday, the sock was unavailable. I think...
Well, let's forget about all that. That's all in the past. The sock will be here tomorrow. The shoes are here.
Yeah, but
how do we get them tested by the defense?
Well, the test and the examination has to be done by Dr. Lee, who is the one that has been doing extensive research into it. Dr. Lee was here, changed all his scheduling, came down here, was here to do this, couldn't get it done on Saturday. He's now in Denver. He has to go back to the East Coast. He has responsibilities there. And it seemed to us that the most expeditious and best thing to do in terms of expense, frankly, to both sides in this matter, was since the courier was going out, that the socks could be taken by that one courier to Dr. Lee's laboratory in New Haven so that he can perform his tests and examination on that sock. The problem we have is that the conditions that Dr. Lee and Mr. Morton and the other experts have to work under at LAPD are far from ideal. In fact, in certain instances, they're inadequate for purposes of conducting these tests. They need their own equipment, special equipment, particularly for the examination of these socks and hairs and fibers we'll get into. So Dr. Lee has strongly urged us to try to accomplish that, and it seemed to me I had to bring this to the court's attention, and I think we even raised it last week as a possibility when it became clear that no courier was going to be sent out last week to get the sock for Saturday, that there was a possibility when that courier came back that courier could, already in the East Coast, could go to Dr. Lee's lab and take it. We raised that last week, and we wanted to bring this to your attention immediately because that's critical evidence. It's coming in soon, and we want to have a...
So you're suggesting that we have a courier stop at the FBI, go to Dr. Lee's lab, and then bring it back here to LA?
That's right.
All right, what about the shoes?
Well, the shoes, obviously we would prefer that he have those at the same time, but if all we can get is the socks, we'll take the socks, because that's critical.
All right, how do you propose to look at and examine the shoes if they're here in LA?
Well, what we were able to do for the present period was look at one set of shoes in the lab. Obviously, the other set were there, but nobody knew it. I know that the examinations that Dr. Lee wants to perform on the socks, there's one separate set he wants to perform on the socks and one set that he wants to perform on the socks and the shoes in combination, but the more painstaking ones immediately just concern the socks. So that would solve a lot of our needs if he got a chance to look at those socks right away. The relationship of the socks and the shoes is something that is going to be later in the trial, but I would expect in the next 2 weeks the socks are coming in, and so he wants to see those.
All right, Mr. Hodgman, what is the what objection do you have to the socks going to Dr. Lee's laboratory other than the additional expense?
Your Honor, there's been no demonstration of good cause. I would point out to the court that based upon a syllabus of sorts that we presented to the court last week, that these socks have been examined by the defense on 4 occasions, including one several-hour examination by Dr. Lee at LAPD SID just a few weeks ago. So we have the matter of additional expense. We have the fact that these socks have been examined multiple times by the defense thus far, and Dr. Lee can come here. Part of the problem, as described or characterized by the defense with Saturday, is that they were trying to get a lot done in the same space. There's a conference room over at LAPD SID, which seemed to be suitable when Dr. Lee examined those socks the first time around a few weeks ago. On this particular occasion, this last Saturday, we had Mr. Morton at one end of a large conference table, Mr. Lee at the other end, and things were a bit crowded. If we removed half of the examiners for purposes of conducting a single examination, I think once the equipment is brought in, whatever equipment the defense wants to bring in, the conditions or the problem with the conditions will be solved. So the people object that there's no showing of good cause. We ask that this examination be done locally. In addition, Your Honor, we only have a courier who would be available to take the socks. We still have the matter of having a monitor or a special master or someone like that who would have to be arranged if we were to go to the New Haven lab. So our position is, let's have Dr. Lee come here and examine the socks at LAPD SID.
When do you anticipate in your consultations with Ms. Clark when these socks will be offered into evidence by the people?
I can't address that, Your Honor.
When is Mr. Scheck, when is the students that Dr. Lee can come to Los Angeles and use lab facilities here and examine the socks?
I don't know the answer to that immediately, but I would just point out that before the socks were taken to the FBI for testing, when that was announced and decided, we flew Dr. Lee in for the first meaningful examination of the socks, first time any expert could touch and really examine the socks. He did that at the last minute. If you recall, we flew him down at 6:55 in the morning from Seattle to go to the lab. We got a microscope that was the best that could be obtained on quick notice, that was not nearly powerful enough, and he was able to essentially start a first examination. Since then, they've been tested again. There are complicated things he has to do. There's an infrared videotape that was taken by the prosecution's experts of the sock in various spots. They've had Mr. Englert look at it. They've had various different experts look at it for long periods of time. We really have to study the sock. The conditions, most respectfully, at LAPD and the various equipment that's needed are woefully inadequate for that purpose. And if the court desires an affidavit from Dr. Lee to that effect, immediately, I will locate him to get it. But the reason I want...
is, when is he available to come to Los Angeles and do this?
I don't think he's available, to my knowledge, to come to Los Angeles for at least the next week, and I know it's very difficult for him to make this time. That's why we tried to make these arrangements.
Are there any other lab facilities here in the county of Los Angeles that Dr. Lee would find acceptable to use?
We've investigated this, and the problem is getting all the equipment that's necessary in one place at one time, and getting the material there. Frankly, the amount of money that was expended in overtime, in opening up the LAPD lab to give us an opportunity to go in there, where the facilities were inadequate for studying this evidence for lots of purposes, I'm sure cost money. I can't imagine that the cost of this courier staying over an extra day to take the socks, or 2 days to take the socks to New Haven for purposes of this one examination, could possibly be as high as the costs of opening up that whole lab, arranging for things to be brought over, having a photographer come, having district attorneys and everybody else sit and watch, take notes, and make all those logistical arrangements.
There's no other lab facility here in the county of Los Angeles that's available to you for this testing that would be adequate?
Well, we have made inquiry, and we have not found anything that approaches the instrumentation that Dr. Lee has available to him in his lab. After all, he's perhaps the foremost expert in these areas in the country, and he has lots of state-of-the-art equipment that are not available, that we can find in any one lab in this immediate vicinity. So it would be...
Well, I have to tell you, Mr. Scheck, that I agree with Mr. Hodgman's position that the indication was I would allow this testing to go on outside of the state of California if there was a showing of good cause, which I haven't seen here. I mean, we've talked about stereoscopic microscopes, which I'm sure they're a dime a dozen.
Oh, no.
Sure they are.
Dime a dozen?
$1,000 a day, was it $1,000 a day?
They're available here
Well,
in the county of Los Angeles.
Well, there are other facilities and other kinds of tests that he, I think, intends to do.
All right,
He made
Mr.
that
Scheck-
point to me
Mr.
strongly.
Scheck, then why don't you do this? Why don't you get a declaration from Dr. Lee as to what it is he wants to do, what kind of equipment he needs. I need a declaration from you that all of this equipment isn't available here locally and that there's good reason to have to do it otherwise. Then, if I do grant that, I will probably require you to pay the cost for that,
Pay the cost of
the additional courier cost.
the additional courier cost of going out there. Well, I think that, frankly, that would be far preferable to us and far less expensive for the city of Los Angeles and for everybody else. For us to pay that courier, I'm sure it wouldn't even be approaching what it takes to rent all the equipment and bring everybody over into a situation that isn't going to be as good as it would be if it were sent out there. So what I'm really urging the court is that part of the good cause is that if it's done the way that we urge it be done, it's cheaper.
All right, number 2.
Your Honor, with regard to that, we would like an opportunity to be able to explore with labs locally, once we obtain the affidavit or declaration from Dr. Lee, what equipment he needs, because I believe it can be done locally, and we would prefer that it be done locally.
Well,
Those
that's why I'd like to see an affidavit telling me what kind of equipment we need and what we're talking about.
See, that courier is going to be getting on a jet tomorrow morning in Washington to bring those socks back. I'm informed that the socks will be back here at 3 p.m. tomorrow. So that's the timeline we're dealing with. But, Your Honor, our preference is, let's do it locally. If it has to be an independent lab, then it can be an independent lab that presumably has the equipment that Dr. Lee requires, and the defense has chosen...
I'm not restricting this to the county of Los Angeles. I mean, just any contiguous county. I know there's some good crime labs down in Orange County, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure we can find a lab somewhere.
Yeah.
Sheriff's lab, who knows?
And there's one additional wrinkle in the socks, Your Honor, and that is this. Pardon me.
It's a little late in the afternoon to be doing that to me, Mr. Hodgman.
Mr. Scheck informed me that Dr. Lee would like to do some cutting with regard to the socks. And if that's the case, that's going to necessitate certain specialized personnel from on our part, to be able to observe what goes on. So that gets folded into the mix as well.
All right. Well, like I say, when I see the affidavit of good cause, I'll think about it. And we'll see. You'll have the opportunity to respond, Mr. Hodgman. All right. That one's still on the table. All right. Number 2, trace evidence.
Your Honor, with regard to number 2, once again, we have a situation where this trace evidence, which, other than the items from which it was collected, but otherwise specifically not specified in the defense request, has been examined by the defense. This, as the court will recall, the trace, that is the hair and fiber evidence, was examined by Mr. Schulberg in Virginia some months ago. In addition, Mr. Morton had an opportunity to view this trace evidence in Albany just a few short weeks ago. So again, as we have a request for movement of this trace evidence, I'm asking that it be done locally under the same terms and conditions as we're contemplating for item number 1. That is, it can be done locally. Here, the defense was aware of the conference room situation. The setting was chosen. We opened up the LAPD lab with the understanding that this was going to be acceptable. And we receive a declaration today that somehow was unacceptable because the defense apparently tried to do too much on one day. So again, I would submit that if the defense is a little bit more reasonable in terms of what they try to accomplish over at LAPD, Mr. Morton's examination can be done at LAPD or in the alternative, some local lab nearby, without necessitating great movement of these items of evidence.
Mr. Scheck?
Yes, we would rely on Mr. Morton's affidavit. I beg to differ with Mr. Hodgman about what could or could not be accomplished and what space was or was not available and what was anticipated. We didn't anticipate that we would have to necessarily stay in that one room. A request was made to go into the microscopy room by Mr. Morton, and Mr. Matheson informed him that it was against policy for him to do so. I don't think that there's any serious question among criminalists, or frankly, even the people in LAPD, that the kind of examination that's necessary to look at all these hairs and fibers, as Mr. Morton describes, absolutely cannot be conducted under those kinds of conditions. It takes a long period of time to go through these bindles, some of which we have created because we found new evidence on the same key pieces of the same items that previously had been examined by the prosecution's experts. We found more. We want to look at all that together. Some slides have been mounted. To the extent that you can look at a mounted slide, it's easier. But it turns out, upon examination of the evidence, that most of this is not mounted. So what he has to do is carefully go through each of these things, look at them, decide which ones to mount. It's a painstaking process. It can't be done in a marathon session.
What I got out of Mr. Morton's declaration is that he says it's painstaking, it's time-consuming, it takes a lot of time, and I need more time. That's what I got out of the 3 pages here.
Yes, and also that the way that this has been done in the past in almost every other case that he deals with rare exception, is that ordinarily the evidence is simply sent to his laboratory by various jurisdictions in California, including Los Angeles prosecutors, Sheriff's Department on other occasions, and it's taken to his lab and he looks through it.
All right, Mr. Hodgman, why can't we do that in this case? Mr. Morton is local, semi-local, Alameda County, well-known to you, well-known to me.
And the reason why, Your Honor, is they've already had 2 shots at this very same evidence. Mr. Schulberg last fall, and the Albany trip, which was arranged at great expense, that the defense had 3 days to examine this evidence back in Albany, or at least the better part of 2 days. Mr. Morton was there. Why is it that we need to do it again? I haven't heard any good cause justification for that yet.
Well, let's assume that I accept the argument that there's so much of this stuff, this trace evidence, and that it's very time-consuming to look at. How would you propose we allow Mr. Morton 2 or 3 additional days to look at this stuff?
I would submit, Your Honor, that Mr. Morton, if you feel he needs 2 or 3 more days, but they have had time. But putting the time issue aside, we would like the evidence to remain locally. As the court sought fit in its order, we have a preference for this type of evidence to be examined locally. In this particular instance, I would submit we either use the LAPD facilities. Mr. Morton can bring in what he needs. Again, part of the problems this past Saturday was because they were trying to do too much in the space that was chosen. That can be remedied by simply being reasonable in terms of what they're trying to accomplish in the space that is given to them and in the time that is allowed.
All right, Mr. Scheck, Mr. Morton does not include in his affidavit any indication as to what equipment he needs for this examination.
Yes, well, I think it's known to the prosecution that it's a comparison microscope, and the only one we were able to get from him down here that was like his was not, as he said, up to his standards of the one he has in Northern California. Now, this is in California. It's in Northern California. And there's, they wouldn't let us use the microscopy room at LAPD. It doesn't have comparable equipment in the first instance, and it is just not reasonable, given the fact that they had these fibers and hairs, and were looking at them from the 8th of August through the 7th of September at the FBI and their facilities. This takes time. We did the best we could under those circumstances in Albany. We've generated yet new evidence from the same items recovered at the scene. And frankly, right now, we're only focusing on the most important items of evidence that have been introduced and are going to be introduced in the trial. And there's a need for us to get this done expeditiously. He's willing to sit there, get rid of all his other cases, and sit there and get this done just by looking at this 3 days in a row.
What would be involved as far as courier and special master services?
Well, I would say this. At this point, given the problems that we have, I would welcome the appointment of a special master to go through this discovery. Nothing could be better from my point of view to try to work this out as best as possible. I don't know. It's up to the prosecution. I mean, they can have somebody sit in the room and photograph him looking at a microscope for 3 days, or they could do what's usually done and let him look at the evidence.
Your Honor, I would point out once again, there is still the issue of why, when they had the opportunity in Albany and time, in the lab of their choosing, and LAPD will make the room available, they can bring in what equipment they want to bring in, and then it's Mr. Morton's time. LAPD will allow the time there at SID. Why do we have to move the evidence? No good cause has been shown.
All right. Mr. Scheck, I don't see any reason why we should do it this way. I think what you need to do, I agree Mr. Morton should have additional time to look at these things. The prosecution isn't willing to let it go to Alameda without a fight. I haven't seen anything here that the equipment is completely inadequate.
Well, I think he spells out pretty clearly about the working conditions.
Working conditions doesn't tell me anything. What I need to know is I need a Model X, XYZ stereoscopic comparison microscope. You know, I need this light source, I need that. It's not available here.
He did indicate in his affidavit that in addition, a rented comparison microscope of limited capacity was made available. It takes about an hour to set that up. That was the best microscope, we got it from Mr. Sugiyama, I believe, that we could find in the area to do it for these purposes.
All right, so what's involved with bringing his microscope?
He can't do it. We've asked him that on a number of occasions. It's just not movable. It's planted in his lab, apparently. He says it's just not transportable. We've asked him to...
All right, what's the name of this microscope?
I don't know. I'll have to find out.
All right. Have him call my clerk this evening with the name, number, model number, who manufactured it, who rents it. I'll find you one. Or more appropriately, my law clerks will find you one.
The only other thing I would note is that in terms of the working conditions, one problem is that every time that a bindle was opened or he was looking at a slide, somebody would come running over, take a picture of it. There was the danger of all the evidence, being blown across the table. It's very difficult and unusual circumstances. And I think everybody there recognized it. It wasn't the nature of the room, it was the nature of the circumstances.
Okay, well, get me the model number, name, serial number, et cetera, I'll find you one. All right, last matter are the updated tracking lists. Mr. Heidman.
Your Honor, with regard to that, I have to rely upon information I was given by Mr. Matheson last week. With regard to the sets information, there was an attempt to achieve a printout of the information last week, and apparently the printer, be it antiquated or otherwise inadequate, broke down. There was some sort of meltdown with the printer.
All right. What's the bottom line? When can you have these things available?
Mr. Matheson was off today. I don't know. He informed me last week that they were getting some new software which would allow them to be able to print out the sets information, but that was going to be arriving within 2 weeks of last week. And with regard to the APINs information, at this point, I don't know.
All right. Mr. Matheson will be in tomorrow?
Yes.
All right, why don't you report back to me by the close of the morning session tomorrow as to when these items will be available, because I think the defense is entitled to look at those. All right, anything else?
Yes.
Let's see, if I may, Your Honor, just one point with regard to the hair and fiber information. I realize the court is trying to craft a way for the defense experts to take a look at it. I would simply point out they've had opportunity and time before. We've had the Albany.
Well, the problem is every time we look at these things, though, there's an ever-expanding number of items to look at, and this stuff really is time-consuming. It really is, if you've ever done any microscopy before. It's very tedious, time-consuming stuff to do.
One more matter I should bring to the court's attention. I didn't include the letter because I was making inquiries about labs in the Los Angeles area and trying to get experts. When we were in the lab on Saturday, we were given access to the original copies of notes by criminalists. And an examination of that reveals to us that we need to have those looked at by a question document examiner. And I can provide to the prosecution the exact items that we have in mind. I know Mr. Goldberg was sitting there with me for quite a few hours and saw me tabbing every page, so he knows exactly what we're looking for or what items are at issue. But I want to put him on notice that that's what we want to do with that notebook of items that were filled out by the criminalists, the originals of which we first saw on Saturday. Dr. Lee took a look at those as well, and we know we want an examination of those documents. I've made inquiry of a lab in Los Angeles that I know could be available, and Mr. Harris. However, he can't do the case because of other time commitments, and so I'm looking for another expert who I can have go and use this lab in Los Angeles. I assume that that plan, given the constraints here, is a sound one. But I wanted to put them on notice that that's something we want to do right away.
All right.
Well, Your Honor, that may be something they want to do, but I haven't heard any justification or reason why. If the defense, either by way of motion or by way of letter, perhaps.
I assume that was just Mr. Scheck putting you on notice that that's something that may occur.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
And frankly, I don't know why. I guess my problem here is I understand the difficulties involved in this case, but we are only trying to get an opportunity to examine the evidence before it's put on. We're in an unusual situation. I've looked at the court's ruling on the testing question and read it again and again and again. And my concern that I've expressed before to the court, and just to put it on the record, is that when the court made its ruling that the prosecution could continue testing through the trial without any particular time limits, balancing the defendant's need for a speedy trial and the situation we were thrown into. One consequence, however, that wasn't specifically addressed or even argued by me or considered is that as all these items were essentially being frozen for purposes of potential DNA testing, genetic testing, and whatever other kinds of testing they wanted to continue to perform as this case went on, that made it impossible for the defense to get access to do its testing until the prosecution was finished. So what we have going on in this trial is an unprecedented situation from the point of view of our experts who...
Well, Mr. Scheck, I've agreed that I think you're entitled to test this stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. See you all tomorrow, 9 o'clock.